Awakening to the Natural State by John Wheeler. Chapter 1, Meeting Sailor Bob Adamson. I had been on the spiritual path for my teenage years. For about 30 years I had been involved in various paths and practices, including Christianity, Theosophy, the teachings of J. Krishnamurti, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Yoga. There were others paths and teachers also, too numerous to mention here. In my mid-20s, I was introduced to Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj through books on their lives and teachings. Something about those great Indian teachers of non-dual spirituality seemed solid and unshakable. I found myself returning to their teachings over the years, even though I can't say I fully or even partially understood or experienced what they were talking about. Along the way, I did the circuit of many of the contemporary teachers involved in non-dual spirituality. There was undoubtedly a benefit, but I was not fully satisfied for some reason. Either it was my confusion or something was not fully clear in the teachings being presented. Most likely the former. For some reason my destiny was to meet Sailor Bob Adamson, one of Nisargadatta Maharaj's Western students. What I found was that there was only so much I could get from books and meditating on my own. The growth was there, but it was often slow, and I was not getting much direct experience. I vaguely felt that I was progressing, but if I honestly looked at my experience, I did not fully understand what the teachers were pointing to. Most importantly, my day-to-day life was not free of suffering. I knew the seeking was not over, something was missing. Had I not met Bob Adamson, the seeking might have gone on for decades, or at least until I met someone with a real understanding. Who knows who that might have been or when, but barring that, I am pretty sure the seeking and suffering would have continued for a long time. At one point, I met some Ramana Maharshi followers who had been on the path of self-inquiry for 20 or 30 years and still working at it, I might add. I was nowhere near their level of devotion, so it was pretty much out the picture that that approach would work for me. As I look at this now, it is not so much Ramana's teaching that is at fault, but the mind's inevitable tendency to turn any teaching into a practice. Practices, as I eventually learned, usually are interminable. This is because they are often based on false premises. Intuitively, I felt that it was important for me to meet someone who had realized their true nature, someone whom I could trust, someone whom I could talk with in order to share my doubts and concerns. However, I was unsure which teachers were authentic. None seemed to resonate fully. I used to read Nisargadatta Maharaj's dialogues frequently. I could not understand his teaching fully, given all the Hindu verbiage and translation issues he originally spoke in Marathi, but I felt intuitively that he was a free being. Many spiritual seekers, through reading his words, can sense the genuineness of his realization, even if they do not always experience everything he talks about. I used to wonder if there was anyone still living who had met Nisargadatta Maharaj and had really got the experience of self-knowledge. After all those years of searching, I eventually stumbled across Bob Adamson. Something resonated strongly. Even when I read the pages on his website, there was a strong feeling of maybe this is it. Just prior to discovering Bob Adamson, I had a vivid dream of Nisargadatta Maharaj, in which he was encouraging me not to give up the search for spiritual understanding. Shortly afterwards, I learned about Bob Adamson. Not wanting to miss the chance of meeting an authentic teacher, having missed the chance to see Nisargadatta Maharaj while he was alive, I decided to visit Bob in person in Australia. You can imagine my motivation, or perhaps desperation, in going to Australia on the chance that he might be able to clarify my doubts and questions. What I have found is that the understanding of our true nature almost never comes from reading books or thinking about it. The best books are primarily the records of dialogues that took place between a seeker and a teacher at some point in the past. In reading such books, we are trying to understand an experience that took place in the past through words and concepts on the page. A book is like a map pointing to something real that was experienced in a dialogue between living people. Usually, we do not have a clear understanding of what is being revealed, at least I didn't, and we are trying to figure it out in the mind. This is a noble attempt, but as Bob Adamson pointed out within a few minutes of talking to him, the answer can never be found in the mind. The experience of spiritual understanding and freedom is not forthcoming, so we naturally assume that we are not there wherever there is. We think there must be some technique or path involved to get there, but somehow we are not quite sure what it is. The result is that the mind keeps generating the same old bondage and suffering. This is a frustrating cycle, because we intuitively feel a glimmer of light or truth in the readings, but the actual experience eludes us. The majority of seekers that I have met have had a similar experience. Many are driven to try to find a living teacher, in order to get some guidance and assistance on the spiritual path. This was what happened for me. I met many teachers, but it wasn't until I met Bob Adamson that I was convinced that I was dealing with someone who had fully realized his true nature. Something radically shifted for me because I came face to face with the vitality, the confidence, the energy of that understanding. It was a remarkable experience and quite different from anything I had encountered in my years of seeking. The first day after I arrived, we had a chance to meet and talk. As we sat together, he looked me in the eyes and said point blank, "Do you have any doubts or questions? Is there anything you need to know?" It was somewhat disarming because I realized he was free of doubts and was essentially offering me a chance to have the same experience for myself right then and there. The implication, it seemed to me, was the seeking is over, the reading is over. You are here. Are you ready to go for this completely here and now? Fortunately, I jumped at the chance. I cast aside my theoretical knowledge and got down to getting off my chest my real doubts, questions, and problems. Surprisingly, things cleared up very quickly. Being face to face with that clarity, coupled with my own desire to be free, allowed things to shift quickly. The basic teaching is very simple, almost too simple. It is so simple the mind overlooks it. What I didn't realize was that it has nothing to do with reading, meditating, doing something, working something out, stilling the mind, and so on. All of the techniques are looking in the wrong direction. Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, understanding is all. In essence, Bob was saying, right now in your direct experience, see what your real nature is. What are you right now? What have you always been? The thinking mind is useless for this because seeing or looking is not a conceptual function at all. It is more like seeing an apple in your hand. You just look, not think. Right now as you read this, you exist and you are aware that you exist. You are undoubtedly present and aware. Before the next thought arises, you are absolutely certain of the fact of your own being, your own awareness, your own presence. This awareness is what you are, it is what you always have been. All thoughts, perceptions, sensations, and feelings appear within or upon that. This awareness does not move, change, or shift at any time. It is always free and completely untouched. However, it is not a thing or an object that you can see or grasp. The mind, being simply thoughts arising in awareness, cannot grasp it or know it or even think about it. Yet, as Bob says, you cannot deny the fact of your own being. It is palpably obvious, and yet, from the time we were born, no one has pointed this out. Once it is pointed out, it can be grasped or understood very quickly because it is just a matter of noticing, oh, that is what I am. It is a bright, luminous, empty presence of awareness. It is absolutely radiant, yet without form. It is seemingly intangible, but the most solid fact in your existence. It is effortlessly here right now, forever untouched. Without taking a step, you have arrived, you are home. No practice can reveal this because practices are in time and in the mind. Practices aim at a result, but you as presence awareness are here already, only you don't recognize it till it is pointed out. Once seen, you can't lose it, and you don't have to practice to exist to be. This is, in essence, what Bob pointed out to me in the first conversation I had with him. Once I saw this, I felt very clear and free immediately. Later, some thoughts came up, some old personality patterns, some old definitions of who I thought myself to be. I seemed to lose the clear understanding of my nature as presence awareness. The next day I talked to Bob about it. He said, "Let's have a look. Do you exist? Are you aware? What is illumining the thought that you have lost it?" Then I realized that thoughts of suffering were only passing concepts being illumined by the ever-present awareness. I hadn't lost anything at all. The awareness that we are is never obscured. Suffering seems real because we don't have a clear understanding of our true nature. Instead, we believe the passing thoughts such as "I am no good," "I am not there yet," "I am stuck," or whatever the thought may be. Eventually we understand that we are not those thoughts. Once our real self is pointed out, the suffering loses its grip. Bob pointed out that there is no person here at all. The person that we think we are is an imaginary concept. There are thoughts and feelings and perceptions, but they are not a problem. They just rise and fall like dust motes in the light of the presence awareness that we are. The closest that the mind can come to representing who we are is the thought "I am." But that thought is not who we really are. Whether that thought is there or not, we still exist. We know the thought "I am." That thought is the start of the false sense of an individual, a separate I. Because we didn't know any better, the mind attached other labels to this "I" thought, such as "I am good," "I am bad," "I have this problem," and so on. But those thoughts don't have anything to do with us because the very "I" thought itself, the sense of separation, is not actually who we are. Once you see the falseness of the "I" thought, that what we are is not an individual person at all, the identifications and ideas of a lifetime all collapse because they are all based on a false premise. There is no practice to overcome suffering. It is simply a matter of seeing that the false I is an assumption, that the whole mechanism is a conceptual house of cards. Then a lifetime of suffering evaporates. As Bob says, without the cause the I, can there be any effects, psychological suffering and bondage? As I sat on his couch at one of his talks listening to him say, "There is no person," suddenly it hit me. I looked and saw that right now and here there is not a separate person in the picture at all. In that moment, all my doubts and confusion evaporated. I realized that all problems and questions stem from the sense of an I that was assumed to be there at the center of my life. Upon actual looking, I discovered it was not there at all. 15 years of meditating could not accomplish what occurred in a few moments of direct looking. In that recognition arose a direct and immediate sense of clarity and peace. I intuitively felt that the searching was over. I recall raising my hand and asking Bob, "So when you see yourself as the ever-present awareness and that the I that we imagined ourselves to be is really non-existent, then there can be no more doubts, questions, or problems. Is that it?" He confirmed that this was so. From that moment on, I have not felt any serious difficulty or suffering, nor felt the slightest desire or urge to seek, meditate, or pursue any particular spiritual path. The whole landscape shifted and I intuitively knew the seeking was over. The I upon which everything was based was not there. However, the shining presence awareness was still there without effort, the simple fact of our own being. Finally, Bob pointed out that all things arise in awareness and never exist apart from awareness. It is all one substance, all one light, it is all that, it is non-duality. There is nowhere to go and nothing to obtain. Everything is resolved. We live, move, and have our being in that one ocean of light and never, ever move away from that. This was the understanding that came to me, courtesy of Bob Adamson. It is all words, but maybe a glimmer of something will come through. Chapter 2, Why I use the term natural state. I use the term natural state because this true nature that we are is effortlessly present, spontaneously available, and requires no pursuit or acquisition. To me, natural implies something outside the influence of or not a product of conceptual thought. It is easy and natural. This terminology is by no means original. I just happen to like it. Natural is also the meaning of the term Nisarga, as in the name Nisargadatta, so there is for me a remembrance of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, whom I admire and who was Bob Adamson's teacher. The term natural state also appears in other traditions, so it seems like a good non-denominational term. Whenever you use words, you have to pick something, so the term natural state seems as good as any. There are many good ones: presence awareness, cognizing emptiness, the clear light, the self-consciousness, the one mind, God or reality. They are all pointers. The word is not the thing, so there is no need to get hung up on the words. Chapter 3: Enlightenment in the Future. Right now you exist, you are aware. Without taking a thought, you are absolutely sure of your being. That is the essential reality being pointed to. All of the Buddhas and sages of all times are fully present at the core of the one who is reading these words right now. You will never attain this, never find it, and never know it as some object of thought or experience. Why? Because the very awareness that you are and have always been is fully and completely that now. We never become enlightened tomorrow because tomorrow is imagined in the mind. You always exist prior to the mind. At some point you turn back and notice the fact of your own being. Then you are home even though you never left home. This is not a result of some fantastic ability or spiritual prowess. It is just a matter of simple looking. Chapter 4: How this understanding unfolded for me. The way this understanding unfolded for me was through the following insights. Bob pointed out to me the truth of our nature as presence awareness or cognizing emptiness. Somehow that clicked for me. It was not so much the words which I had read countless times before. It was the energy or vitality coming through the words that was potent and impactful. I sensed he was not only saying the words, but also living from that realization. This enabled a resonance to occur. To meet Nisargadatta Maharaj in person and partake in a living dialogue with him would likely have been more potent than reading his book I Am That. There was a huge difference between reading the words on paper Your Awareness and having a direct disciple of Nisargadatta Maharaj tell me in no uncertain terms, You are awareness. After having seen this and feeling some sense of freedom, I still seemed to lose it when contradictory thoughts arose. Bob pointed out that this is in fact not possible. You cannot lose your true nature because it is the substratum of any thinking and perceiving. I realize that we can never leave this. Even if the thought I lost it arises, the awareness is there knowing that thought. So the thought is patently false. The knockout blow is seeing the absence of a person. There is no such entity in the machine. There are only thoughts, experiences, and objects arising and subsiding in awareness. There is no one controlling them and no one affected by them. Once this is seen, everything happens just as before, but the imagined person is removed from the film. The film goes on, but there is no person starring in it. There are thoughts but no thinker, actions but no actor, choices but no choice maker. Basically, there is no difference from before, except the sense of separation is gone, along with the psychological suffering, confusion and doubt that appears along with the belief in a separate I. There is no one at the controls. Life is happening, thoughts are arising, actions are occurring spontaneously. You as a separate person are not doing any of these things. You don't choose your thoughts, feelings, sensations. As Bob says, you are being lived. As a final tying up of loose ends, it was helpful to see the fact that all experiences are just movements in awareness. They are like waves arising and falling in the awareness that we are. It is all one substance. There is only one energy, one substance, one taste. Past, future, there, here, I, you, this, that, and so on, are all just conceptual distinctions. Even concepts are that awareness. So you can't win. So what is the result? As the writer Y. Wu Wai once wrote, the only problem is that 99.9% of everything you think, say and do is for yourself, and there isn't one. Coming into alignment with the true state of affairs means that the usual strife, struggle and suffering based on wrong understanding vanishes. Life goes on. It is like a dislocated limb popping back into place. You can hardly say what happened, but suddenly everything feels a lot better. Nisargadatta Maharaj said something to the effect, "You can only put it negatively. There is nothing wrong anymore." There is a distinct recognition that the searching is over. You may read books or visit spiritual teachers, but you have the experience that they are saying what you already know. In actual practice, while this understanding is sinking in, the seeker is often plagued by vestigial doubts, questions, and concerns in spite of however advanced the intellectual understanding may be. I have seen many, including myself, able to converse on all this with the most incredible precision and verbal acumen. The only test is in day-to-day direct experience at the gut, emotional level. Is there any sense of suffering, separation, anxiety, or fear? Am I feeling doubt or metaphysical uncertainty? Is the knowledge of my true nature unshakable? If not, the understanding is not complete. The best course, it seems to me, is to find a living teacher and get your doubts resolved directly. Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, "I am not interested in what you have let go of, but what you are still holding on to." A good teacher can help us resolve any remaining doubts. Then the understanding simply remains clear and steady and beyond doubt. For me, this understanding was triggered by my association with Baba Adamson, who in turn had realized this through contact with Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj in 1976. Chapter 5. All problems are for the I. All problems, issues, concerns, questions, dilemmas, and so on are for the I. For example, I am happy, I am sad. I know, I don't know. I had it, I lost it. I was born, I will die. I am good, I am bad. These are just a few examples of self-centered thinking. As you can see, all these binding thoughts revolve around the sense of I. Nail down the identity of the I and all problems resolve. The imagined sense of being a separate I is the source of all problems. Because the I as a thought is really very intangible, all types of other ideas get wrapped around it in order to give it some semblance of solidity. All the self-definitions, identities, and apparent conditioning hinge on the unexamined sense of I. The most direct teachings set aside all philosophizing and theorizing and go directly into an investigation of the import, the real meaning of the word I. This, I believe, is Ramana Maharshi's self-inquiry. What is this that I call I? We are constantly saying I all day long, all life long, but what is this I? If the cause I is seen to be non-existent, can all the effects, all the definitions built on the I survive? I had read about this idea for years, but my entire view of life was radically altered when I actually investigated this for myself. The moment I saw that the person I thought myself to be was not there, that it was a false assumption, I directly experienced a profound freedom from all problems, doubts, and suffering. It was remarkable. I did nothing at all. There was just a looking and seeing that the person, the separate I, was not there. There was not a trying to be free or solving of any intellectual puzzles. That is about all I can say. You can never find the answer in the mind, so it is useless to look there. No amount of thinking can free you from the riddles created by thought. Problems, if there are any, are only created by the mind. They are a product of thought, but you don't have to do anything with thought, such as get rid of it, modify it, or suppress it. Just see that what you really are, right here and now, is that presence awareness that is the basis on which thought is happening. That which is knowing all your sensations, feelings, and emotions, is radiantly aware. It is effortlessly knowing and being. It is simply the clear, spacious presence of awareness, or as the Buddhists say, cognizing emptiness. Get a feel for this. Have the willingness to look at this. Sense it, feel it, be it, relax into it. Know with assurance that you are not a limited person bound up in thought. You are the sky-like presence awareness in which the whole universe is appearing. The next time you think, I am this or that, I have a problem, or whatever, just drop the apparent problem and ask, who is this I that I think I am? Is this what I really am? You can even investigate and try to find this I in your direct experience. Is there a sensation, a thought, or a feeling that you can call I? We say I, but precisely what is it? Then it will dawn on you, hey, am I not aware? Am I not present? Is not the presence of my true nature here, perfectly untouched, unsullied, like the sun shining above the clouds, completely unaffected by the appearance and disappearance of thought? This kind of looking will pull the drain plug out of the sink of the mind, and all problems will be sucked into the void of non-existence. I do not exaggerate when I say that a lifetime of problems will evaporate. As they say, a cave may have been dark for thousands of years, but when you bring a torch into the cave, the light instantly obliterates that darkness. Chapter 6: Understanding Awareness and Thought. When I came across Bob Adamson's book and CDs of his talks, inner changes started to happen. I didn't consciously do anything, but the grip of the conceptual thoughts began to loosen. Things began shifting and falling away. I could not even articulate what was happening, but there was an experience of freedom. I sensed it was right. When you come across a good, clear teaching, it is the wisdom and the clarity of the teaching that is liberating, not necessarily anything you do to make understanding happen. Ultimately, it is your own innate wisdom that is functioning in response to the clear pointers of the teacher. The you trying to understand, who seemingly gets it and loses it, who struggles and so on, is not who you actually are. It is just a play of thoughts, of concepts, of unexamined assumptions about yourself and the world. You innocently pick them up in the course of living. It is these thoughts that create the perplexity and confusion. Notice that when you are asleep or absorbed in some interesting activity, your problems disappear. It is a key point to see that all problems are just created in thought and nowhere else. This is fundamental. All problems, doubts, and confusion are generated in thought. Not being clear on our true nature, we believe the concepts and stories in the mind, and they take us for a ride. Your living awareness, who you really are, is utterly present and not affected in the least by thoughts. You are aware of the mind just like the sun shines on the clouds. You are utterly free of thought. Whatever thought says about you is untrue. You are prior to the mind. There is knowing, hearing, seeing, and sensing going on all the time spontaneously. This primary awareness is present. It is prior to any conceptual activity. There is a fundamental difference between awareness, or the direct experience of knowing, and conceptual thought, which is just words and labels. We take the words and labels to be real. Can you drink the word water? Is the thought I see the same as actual seeing? Do the eyes say I see? Or is there simply seeing and later the thought comes up I see? It is the same for all the other senses. Try to see the difference between awareness or non-conceptual knowing or direct knowing and the labeling activity of the mind. Of course, thought is also directly known in awareness. Thought is happening in awareness directly, spontaneously. Later the thought comes up I am thinking. That I is spurious. It is not really present, except as a concept. You shine as the living light of pure awareness at all times, never touched by thought or its definitions. Out of ignorance we tend to focus on the thoughts and labels, the stories and the person imagined in thought. A subtle shift brings you back to the simple recognition of the fact of your true nature as presence awareness. The mind can never grasp at your true nature because it contains thinking. However, you can know for certain at any moment your real nature because you know you are aware, you know you exist, even without taking thought about it. Normally, this is overlooked because it is so simple. The mind is apt to minimize this pointing, but it is utterly profound. If you have the good luck to meet someone living in this direct understanding, he or she will point you back to this relentlessly, until it is as plain as the nose on your face. It is useless to struggle to get this. Just let the pointing draw you in. Feel the resonance. It will get you. Chapter 7. It can't be that easy, can it? Questioner. Ha ha. John, glad to see you get it. Many is the seeker who has laughed when they finally got it, including Buddha. It is a cosmic joke. Question. If that is enlightenment, I have been enlightened forever without knowing it, all the while desperately searching for it. John, I am not sure you see how profound your words are. But basically, yes. What you are seeking, you already are. Just think over the core expressions of the great teachings. You are that your own mind is the Buddha, I and the Father are one, the eye by which I see God is the eye by which God sees me, and so on. This is the core insight at the root of all deeper spiritual teachings. A clarification may be helpful here. It is not exactly precise to say I am enlightened. An essential aspect of the understanding is that there is ultimately no separate I to be enlightened or unenlightened. Nevertheless, recognition of your true nature is possible. It is just that an individual cannot claim it as an experience. Question. You are kidding here. That's all there is to it? Is that what self-realization means? To simply know, feel, experience, and be the source of the thoughts about what you are, which never are and never can be what you actually are, because the real you precedes these thoughts and causes these thoughts. John. Yes. Don't underestimate this understanding. The mind out of habit will want to dismiss this. It will say this can't be it, it is too simple. And then you are off around the track again. If you see yourself as that which stands prior to thought, you are outside of time, the universe, duality, birth, death, you name it. There is no bondage to speak of. Question. I am the projector of images and not the images. I am the very thing being presence, awareness that wonders what the hell it really is. I am the life that is trying to figure out what life is all about. I am the medium of awareness out of which these thoughts emerge. Is that it? John, that is you. You are timeless, ever-shining presence awareness. You can never lose it and never find it, because the one searching is that for which he is seeking. From this point on, thoughts, feelings, actions, and decisions will spontaneously arise as they always have. There is no separate individual at all at the helm. The mighty universe unrolls in the vast light of your true being. Because you are not a limited person at all, there is no more room for questions, doubts, and problems or all the rest of the conceptual apparatus that pertained when you imagined you were a separate I. You are the timeless ground of being. If the mind should arise and say, but what about this and that? Simply notice the ideas as passing thoughts that have no relation to you at all. All thought, feeling, and perception appears in awareness. They have no existence apart from awareness. Just like waves arise and set in the sea, so do all thoughts arise and set in you. Thoughts are only vibrations in awareness. They are made of awareness. There is only one substance, one essence. There is only radiant, cognizing emptiness shining in all directions. That is all. You are that. There is only that. If you grasp this, the course is run. Question. There must be more to it than this. I mean, if this is it, the search is over right where it began. John. Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself. Question. It can't really be that simple. Can it? John. Yes. But I don't have to confirm it at this point, do I? Your question shows that the facade is beginning to crumble and the recognition is already dawning. Chapter 8. Dealing with the mind. It is key to see that the mind simply cannot get this understanding. The doership, the practicing, the meditating, and so on are all at the mind level, but your knowledge of your existence, your awareness, is here immediately in direct experience. The reason the mind cannot get it is because the mind appears in that. You are present whether the mind is there or not. Sensing, thinking, and functioning are happening spontaneously and quite effortlessly without the conceptual activity having much of a role. You are seeing right now, but are your eyes saying, I see? I see is a thought, but seeing is happening. The mind is like a keyhole. You go up to it and look into it. No problem, but then you imagine that your whole life is taking place in the view within the keyhole. If you just step back, you notice there is an entire universe outside of the keyhole. There is no practice or activity within the view of the keyhole that can take you beyond it because you are beyond it already. Just listen to what is being pointed out. Feel the resonance. Your inner wisdom awakens, and you begin to sense the truth that is being pointed out. That is all. You cannot do anything as a separate doer to understand who you are. If you want to do anything, at least question, who am I anyway? I have taken myself to be the mind, to be bound by the mind. Is that really true? Till this questioning occurs, we take the beliefs in the mind to be the reality. The mind is not an enemy, and there is nothing in particular that we need to do with it. It really does not have any momentum, but until it is questioned we remain fascinated with the show. It is our own interest that fuels the momentum. Once you begin to glimpse your true nature as the awareness in which the mind and all else appears, you are out of the game. No effort or struggle is involved. The effort and struggle are part and parcel of the conceptual mind. If you find yourself struggling or fighting with the mind, you have taken a wrong turn. You have overlooked the presence awareness and have jumped on board the train of thought. Realize you don't need to do this. There is nothing compelling you to do it. Just see that this is all taking place in thought, but awareness, the real you, is free already. It is that simple. You do not become free, you notice your present freedom. The binding thoughts in the mind all have their root in the initial thought of separation, that thought. Until that is clearly seen, the mind will continue to give trouble. Nail that down, investigate that one thing, and the entire lifetime of concepts and self-centered activity, the bondage of the mind, is resolved. I say this from my own actual experience. This kind of seeing completely undercuts the mind without any personal effort. The cure for ignorance is wisdom, which is just clear seeing. Initially, this may be pointed out by a teacher, but then your own seeing kicks in and you can take it from there. Soon the knowledge is unshakable, and the need for a teacher is done. The wisdom or recognition arising in you is the response to recognizing the truth being pointed out. Your own innate wisdom is awakened and leads you to what needs to be seen. There is an innate intelligence within you that is much greater than the thinking mind. You intuitively know this. Just have a little faith in that. Say with the pointers. Let them resonate. All will unfold naturally. You will verify it in your own living experience and confirm it by the freedom from suffering and limitation that ensues. Chapter 9. What about reincarnation? Question. It seems like many people are curious about life after death or everlasting life or reincarnation. I also agree that what we truly are always will be. If I am that, what do you think transpires to that when the fragile phenomenal experience of the human mind-body organism comes to its inevitable demise? I understand any answer is only conceptual speculation at best. I understand we should be concerned with who and what and where we are now and not speculate in or about the future or the hereafter, because doing so sets the stage for our own suffering, but I am curiously optimistic. John, I don't claim to be an expert in metaphysical doctrines such as reincarnation and so on. Within the realm of appearances, and while one takes oneself to be a seeker, there are endless theories and doctrines. Ultimately, they are all products of thought and imagination. They seem compelling to the seeker because they provide reasons to explain his seeming separate existence. At the level of the mind, there are endless theories to explain the whys and wherefores of the individual person. They are largely speculative and never have any finality, but was your real nature ever born? Do you have any evidence that it dies? Is it in a body? As a point of fact, when pressed, both Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj, the paragons of Indian spirituality of the last century, stated that reincarnation did not exist. Bob Adamson once said to me, "See the subtle trap trying to analyze what someone has said and what they mean. In doing that, presence is seemingly lost. Looking for a state or no state, a knowing or unknowing or anything at all, can only be conceptualization. This was in a different context, but you might find that in trying to unravel metaphysical conundrums in the mind that you overlook the obvious fact that you are free right now. Awareness is the changeless presence on which the universe appears. At a more relative level, we can descend into the realm of thought and metaphysical theories, but at that point one theory is as good as another, and they are all speculative. Stay with fundamentals. The answer is not in the mind. Even if one takes reincarnation seriously, who reincarnates? Investigation reveals there is no separate I. In the realm of appearance, you as an individual entity don't exist. The I is absent. How can the absence of an I reincarnate? If physical elements recycle, so be it. If thoughts recycle, so be it, but you remain as you are. The space-like awareness that you are is timelessly present as it is. Either way you look at it, reincarnation looks rather tenuous. I am not attempting to deny the theories and mechanics of reincarnation, but it seems more direct to me to notice that there is only one awareness and everything is that. If waves reincarnate into other waves, so be it. The waves may be tremendously fascinated with where they came from, but the sea is not concerned. From the point of view of water, it is all one substance anyway. With your focus on your true nature as consciousness, you see that all theories are just movements in the mind. Awareness is real, thoughts are shadows. The dream of reincarnation is a passing cloud before the blazing sun of awareness, which you are now. In my experience, it is more liberating to stay with solid facts, like you exist and you know you exist, rather than to engage in metaphysical debates, which are interminable. Instead of wondering what one was in a former life or will be in the next life, why not investigate what one is right now? Chapter 10: When Beliefs Drop Away. When you are first exposed to this understanding and lifelong beliefs get challenged, it can be slightly disorienting. The reference points that we took for granted for so long start to drop away. We have built a life upon the concepts and beliefs of who we are. For years, the focus has been to shore up the person, to accumulate, strengthen, and solidify its beliefs and concepts. As you begin to see through the false ideas, the tide turns. Initially, it may feel disconcerting or unusual, but at the same time, you feel immensely freer and lighter. Too much thinking and analyzing all of this just brings in the mind. Ultimately, words are only useful in their function as pointers to your true nature. The attempt to clarify things at a conceptual level or articulate the understanding in words can generate a mild sense of confusion. At some point, you just see that the mind appears in this that you are. You know thoughts, but thoughts can never know you as that presence awareness. Knowing your beingness, your actual existence as that space-like awareness is non-conceptual and immediate. It does not require a mediating agent like the mind or the senses. To the mind, your true nature is no thing, that is, not an object. The mind cannot grasp no thing. This is baffling as long as there is a tendency to keep grasping for something objective. Fortunately, there is no need to do this. However, the old habits to do so may continue to arise for a while. If thoughts arise such as "I feel lost, what do I do now?" and so on, just question, who is this I that is lost or wants to know what to do? This I is just an empty assumption. The thoughts are only whorls of energy spinning in the light of awareness. There is no I at their center. The thoughts move on, but awareness remains free, luminous, and untouched. There is no one lost, no one who needs to understand, no one to do or not do, no one to be afraid. The conceptual I is the cornerstone of the person with all of its problems, doubts, and suffering. As the sense of identity shifts to your real being as presence awareness, the life of suffering dissolves like mist before the rising sun. There is no need to struggle to be what you already are. You are that now. Complete freedom is less than a step away. Chapter 11: The Bottom Line. The following is an excerpt from Bob Adamson's book, What's Wrong with Right Now, Unless You Think About It. Questioner: Bob, what is the bottom line? Bob: right here, right now you are present and you are aware of being present. Realize that you are that one without a second, pure presence awareness, and be what you are. Chapter 12, From Theory to Experience. What you are right now is awareness, or the sense of beingness. It is totally free, completely at peace, and utterly and finally attained, even at this moment. Not being clear on this, that we are, the mind has imagined separation and built a set of beliefs and identities upon this unexamined concept. When you get exposed to this type of teaching, several things begin to happen. First, you get a glimpse of what your true nature is. It is pointed out, perhaps repeatedly, until you see it and know it for certain. This is the most important insight to start with. Your actual being, which is radiantly present and alive, is that which is knowing your thoughts right now, is the truth that is pointed out. There is no other understanding or realization beyond this. In fact, you know this now. You exist and you know that you exist. All a teacher does is assure you with the greatest conviction that this is it. Most of us have had a lot of baggage in the form of beliefs about what this understanding is, how it is supposed to happen, and so on. This type of teaching helps to expose those erroneous beliefs, not to mention the beliefs we have about ourselves. It is only these unexamined beliefs that generate our suffering and our sense of being apart from the peace we are seeking. Everything happens as it happens. It is only from the limited view of the mind and its beliefs that we judge right and wrong. All evaluations are in the mind. From the point of view of what we are, everything is simply a manifestation of the deep harmony of what is, just an arising and ceasing in the light of awareness, which is ever at peace and free. This is true for you right now once you clear up the confusion about your real nature. This does not take time. There is no path to this, and no practice is required. It is just seeing the truth of things. Everything arises and sets in the light of your being. Nothing is separate from that. Forms appear and disappear, but nothing is ever lost or gained. Everything that appears arises from that, exists upon that, and subsides into that. In spite of the appearance and disappearance of people and things, there is a luminous, ever-present background that sheds a fragrance of perfection that permeates everything. That is your birthplace, your true home. Know yourself clearly and all of this begins to make sense. It becomes your direct experience. If you are resonating with this type of teaching, then this understanding is already opening up for you. Just follow your heart and let the understanding unfold. Your own deeper being will lead you where you need to be and will reveal to you what needs to be known. Then you will realize that life is perfect here and now and that you have never left the peace and truth that you are seeking. Stay with the pointers. Savor them like fine wine. Let the pointing unfold within your own heart. Most important of all, see your own true nature as it is. All the pointers are only to reveal this. Chapter 13, The Spiritual Search. Question: the question I keep asking myself is, does this dream of a search in a person who is searching have anything to do with the appearance of grace and realization? John: it depends on what is meant by grace and realization. To me, grace and realization are just other terms for your true nature, call it self, being, awareness, presence, God, or spirit. That never appears, as it is the basis on which all appearances arise and set. From the point of view of the one who imagines himself to be separate and a seeker, there are many questions that seemingly need to be understood. From the point of view of your actual nature as awareness, everything is simple, direct, and clear. Don't worry too much about the questions and issues that the mind raises. The answer is not in the mind. The grace and realization you are looking for is the ordinary awareness shining at your core right at this moment. Understand this and you understand everything. Question: is the motive to be free coming from that which is beyond? Because it seems to me to be part of the dream too. John: that is not beyond. It is here and now. Having apparently forgotten your true nature and identified with unquestioned beliefs in the mind, your innate wisdom simply moves to restore clarity. Some appearances turn back and realize their source, some don't, but it doesn't matter because no one has ever left that. Pure awareness is a brute fact. It is undoubtedly present and intuitively obvious. Questions appear at the level of thought and mind. As long as the existence of the separate I is not questioned, questions, even apparently cogent spiritual questions, will go on. Once you see your nature as awareness, you will find there are few, if any, questions remaining. You are home, you are at peace, there is a sense of oneness. The desire to seek, to know, and to do falls away because the root driver of all of this, the separate person, is not in play any longer. Losing, finding, awakening, and so on are all just appearances in the light of being awareness, which looks on with affectionate detachment. Question: is there even a point to the search? John, who is asking. Instead of trying to answer questions like this, you might find it is interesting to investigate who is asking. There is no ultimate finality or answer to questions as long as the sense of separateness survives. Whether the answer to this question is given as yes or no, you still need to know yourself and resolve the core fundamental metaphysical question, who or what am I? All questions are just different ways of asking, what is real? What am I? What is my true source? Clear up the fundamentals, and the other issues resolve themselves automatically. As far as whether there is a point to the search, I would say, if pressed, the answer is both yes and no. From the point of view of the seeker who imagines himself to be separate, there is no more relevant undertaking than to resolve the question, what am I? From the point of view of awareness, your real essence, the search is pointless, because you are already what you are seeking. Awareness is already free and completely present in all its fullness. The questions go on because the seeker is not clear on his true identity. See yourself as that awareness. See that the separate seeker is not really there, and the entire search comes to an end, because, as mentioned above, you are what you are seeking. Before this became clear to me, the sense of seeking had gone on in various forms for about 30 years. Afterwards there was and is a distinct sensation that the seeking is finally and completely over. It is not a mental assertion but a core gut-level sense. Question: what has been your experience with this? I'm guessing I'll need to find out for myself. John, you certainly need to see all this for yourself, or else it remains just an interesting story. None of it is particularly relevant unless something in you resonates. I have a sense that you are deeply interested in all this, so I am sure the unfolding is happening for you already. Chapter 14. Thinking versus Knowing Who We Are. Questioner: if I experience reality through the mind, how is it possible to go beyond it other than by changing the thoughts? John, I am not precisely clear on what you mean by experiencing reality through the mind. Your sense of being and awareness is actually unrelated to thought. You don't need to think to be and to be aware. It is not necessarily intuitive from a mental perspective, but once you see this, things fall into place. Like you, I had read Nisargadatta Maharaj's books for several years. Yet in all the verbiage and trying to understand things with the mental perspective of looking for it as an object or experience, the obvious got overlooked, until Bob Adamson threw me back relentlessly upon what is here and now. Question: for example, now today after reading the articles on your website, I catch myself thinking, yes, but I read Nisargadatta 20 years ago and it resonated then, but I still identify with the mind. These are the types of thoughts that go through my mind. I can come back to asking myself if I exist, which is undeniable, and maybe there is a feeling of being closer to the truth, but then mind rushes in again and I am back in it again. For you or Bob, there must have been some fundamental change in viewpoint or perspective, and now you, even in mind, for your thoughts support your realization of what you have perceived, sense that intuitive truth. John, the bottom line is that you are that presence or awareness now. When you first get exposed to this, the mind and all the concepts want to rush in with what if, and but and so on. Then you are pointed back again and again to the fact of your own being. Through force of habit, we instinctively look to the thoughts as a gauge of where we are, but it is looking in the wrong direction. Thoughts appear in awareness, which is what you really are and always have been. It is like being above the clouds and then looking down at the clouds searching for the sun. You say, look at all the clouds. They keep arising. Where is the sun? But if you turn around, you notice that the sun is behind you, and it is illuminating the clouds. It is even what is allowing you to see them. The sun really has nothing to do with the appearance or configuration of the clouds. It is a subtle shift but has profound effects. We have been looking in the wrong direction, and this can be quickly remedied once this gets pointed out. It is not really anything you need to practice. You just notice it. The answer is not in the mind. If you ask most people to look across a room and say what they see, they will usually name the various objects. Few will say they notice the space, but once this is pointed out, you notice that everything takes place in space. It is the same with awareness. Once you get a feel for it, the center of gravity starts to shift from fixating on the thoughts to just relaxing into your true being of self-knowing awareness. Question: how do I get there or here, as the case may be? John, you don't get there. You are there now. Your existence awareness is here and now always. If I can make a suggestion, don't be concerned at all with thoughts. The rising of thought has nothing to do with any of this. Be more interested in what thoughts appear in and on. That is the direction to explore. Dealing with thoughts is interminable and there is no freedom forthcoming from doing that. I know from experience, believe me. Know your true nature and thoughts take care of themselves. Just as a heads up in case you are wondering, thoughts will continue to arise for the rest of your life, just as they did before. But knowing your real nature, you will not be concerned like you were before. Peace does not lie in a peaceful mind, but in establishing your identity in that which is deeper than the mind. You are that even now. It just takes a little looking to clarify this. Chapter 15: When Thoughts Rush In. Questioner: thank you for taking the time to write about the natural state and things that happen when exposed to this teaching. I have Tony Parsons' book as it is, and I love the chapter "The Park." Actually, I love the picture before the chapter. When I look at that picture or any landscape from my car porch, for instance, I can notice that for a moment that I see, but the person seeing is not there, but then thoughts rush in. I have this concept that the me will eventually disappear, that this story of me and my life that is ongoing much of the time in my head will just dissolve into seeing. I know I can't make this happen. Is it grace or the big aha? John, don't worry too much about when will I get enlightened. See the paradox in that? Who is that I? You, as the awareness, are fully present as the one knowing the thoughts. It doesn't matter if thoughts rush in or anything like that. I finally realized that so-called awake beings have just as many thoughts, emotions, and experiences as anyone else. Nothing objective changes necessarily. Let that sink in. Right now, you exist and are aware. There is a light within you and knowingness that enables all your perception and thinking. It is fully present and luminous. It always has been present. We just overlooked it. When we pursue spirituality, we imagine all kinds of grand occurrences and events like enlightenment, grace, the great moment, or whatever. Why not? It is innocent enough, but it is based on a false assumption, the assumption we are apart from that, and that we are a separate I that needs to get there. I encourage you to question your assumptions and notice what is real in your experience. That is all that is required, just a simple noticing of what is here at this moment. It will dawn on you that your nature is just this present awareness. It does not depend on thought. It does not come and go. It just hits you that you are there already. And you are. No grand experience is needed because you already are that. Question: when my students I teach high school art finally see conceptual clarity what I'm saying, they get that baby bird look with the little O mouth and big eyes. It is like the light comes on. Suddenly, they know inside what I've been describing. This is how I envision awareness to be. John: yes, just a childlike recognition, but you don't need to envision what awareness would be. Aren't you aware right now? There is no need to envision that, is there? Question: a sudden and complete understanding that was always just below the surface, however, this light has not dawned for me yet. I sense it there, but the lack of joy and ease in my life indicates to me that I am not awake. There is still the longing to be free. John: in one's experience, this is how it feels. This is exactly how it was for me. You will be drawn to these teachings because there is an innate sense that you need to know yourself clearly. You intuitively start to realize how shaky is your conception of yourself. It manifests in doubts and suffering at some level. So life draws you where you need to be to have this pointed out. Then it becomes your knowledge and experience. All I can suggest is not to take too seriously your questions and beliefs, such as the light has not gone on yet or I am not awake yet or whatever. Instead of taking these questions at face value, question them a bit. Make it an interesting inquiry. What is the light that has not gone on yet? Where is the switch? What is the relationship of that light to me? Or, okay, I am not awake, but what am I? Am I so sure I am not awake? How do I know I am not awake? What am I anyway? You will find that the assumptions that we make are the very things that keep us seemingly bound. We think I am not aware. Then we jump on that thought and start to suffer, but wait. What is aware of the thought I am not aware? The teacher, or whoever it might be, just keeps pointing to the fact of your true nature. You are that even now. Question: I would love to talk with you on the phone about this, but right now I don't have control of my emotions and cry easily. When there is less turmoil and I feel calmer, maybe we can discuss imagined beliefs and identities and beingness. John: just have full faith and trust that in spite of any thoughts and turmoil, you are free now. Is the sun affected by passing clouds? The clouds may be black and full of thunder, but does the sun care? It does not matter what your thoughts and feelings are doing. They are just dancing in the light of your being. Don't worry about the appearances. They will change and move as long as you live. It is not a matter of prettying up the appearances. First see what you are. Then you realize that what is going on in the appearance does not touch you. Thoughts and emotions may be calm or active, but awareness remains steady and immovable, absolutely unshakable. Let the focus relax back toward that rather than upon the thoughts and feelings. Chapter 16: Feeling Clear, Feeling Dull. Questioner: it's odd how things can seem so utterly clear one day and then that feeling seems to be replaced with denseness. John: it is natural for a period of back and forth. Then you just settle down into the understanding. There may be a few things floating around that you might need to clarify. That is why I said in one of my articles that vestigial doubts are bound to arise. This is why talking to someone who has a solid understanding of this is good, if you have the opportunity. It tends to speed the process up, at least that is my view of it. Question: I think that I woke up yesterday with a kind of grasping, thinking that I had to keep that same meditation going. It is like I objectified the previous experience and turned it into something to hold on to. John: again, that is pretty natural. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just notice it. Also notice that the awareness actually doesn't waver at all. The mind tries to describe the experience in words or thoughts. Then we tend to start looking in the mind for some kind of confirmation. Just realize you don't have to do this. It is the old habit of the mind trying to gauge things. The interesting thing is that even while you are doing this and seemingly losing it, nothing has really changed. This is all just a play of thoughts dancing around in front of you and does not really touch you. Basically, don't bother with the thoughts and the evaluations. Stay more with the basic insights, which are the presence of awareness and the absence of a separate person. These two insights will completely undercut the tendency to look in the mind for an answer. At some point, you just notice that it is not necessary to look at the mind or really be that concerned about what is arising in thought. Once the energy stops going into thought, it doesn't give that much trouble. Question: this morning I started from scratch, so to speak. First, I permitted all thoughts to appear without resisting them. There truly is no thought that lies outside of consciousness, so why attempt to control the mind? John, this sounds like a clear approach. It is all one substance, just appearances arising and setting in awareness. It is all the same stuff. So what are you going to grasp or resist ultimately? Question: this evening I slipped effortlessly back into the previous meditation of looking for the ego. All else was irrelevant. In our group discussion, people were talking about their insights and delusions. Very interesting to hear, because I could see that what they were saying was perfect and wonderful, but at the same time totally false, because they all contain the notion of a real self and a false self. It was almost as if they are both real and there's a subtle battle going on between the two. John, you are seeing that the dualism, the resistance, is based on false premises. Once you see that, the game is up and you just can't believe it anymore. The old habits may come up for a while, but they eventually settle down because there is no feeding them. At some point further along, you don't really even care if they come up, because in the final analysis thoughts never really touch you and are more like shadows. To me, that is the ultimate freedom from the mind, when you don't care anymore what comes up. You stop fighting it, manipulating it, or even watching it. Basically, you are not fascinated by it anymore. That really takes the wind out of the sails of self-centered thoughts. Question: one thing I wanted to ask you about. I noticed that the sense of presence tends to vanish when I go to sleep at night. Sometimes it carries through, but usually I wake up in a fairly dull mental state. I wonder if I'm grabbing onto some concept just before going to sleep the night before. Can you shed any light on this? John, fundamentally, presence never vanishes. It is key to grasp this. A sense of dullness does tend to arise from following thoughts and getting wrapped up in the story of the mind. You would have to say if or when that is happening for you, which you can do by looking at your experience. You can watch your own experience upon getting up and see if you tend to get back into some unexamined beliefs or assumptions, that is, whether or not the old world gets reconstructed shortly after waking up. This is how my experience used to be. I would usually wake up clear, but then slowly start thinking about my day, my issues, and so on. Then the dull gray cloud would come in, but once you start to see all this, you realize the awareness itself does not alternate between dull and clear. However, I still sense a tendency on your part to be looking at the mind and the status of what is going on mentally as a subtle gauge of where you are spiritually. The mind goes up and down, in and out. If you build your foundation on that, it is shaky. See if you can start to notice instead your real nature as that ever-present awareness. That is brilliant and clear and always with you. Begin to notice that more and more. Notice how the thoughts only exist, only appear because you are there to perceive them. You are prior to thought. So what is more important, your being or short-lived passing thoughts? As the nearness and clearness of awareness becomes more noticed, the issues and problems with thoughts get reduced considerably. You do not really have to do anything to make this happen. You do not have to work with the mind. The wayward mind and self-centered thoughts are a product of not being clear on what is real. As you get in touch with what is real in you, this removes the ignorance. The root of the ignorant thoughts is cut off and exposed. I don't really analyze my dream states. Basically, I just sleep and don't philosophize too much about it. You exist before sleep and after, so you must have existed during sleep too. The mind is not fully present, and the relative subject may have subsided, but as soon as thoughts or dreams appear, that presence of awareness is right there illuminating it all. Whether thoughts appear or not, you still exist. Chapter 17, Being Wholehearted and Fully Involved. Questioner, I can see that my grasping usually centers around the issue of competence. It sounds like what you are saying is that I should not be concerned about whether or not fear or anxiety arises with respect to my work and accomplishments. John, once the sense of separation arose in early childhood, we all developed certain strategies to compensate in an attempt to regain wholeness. It could be being assertive, passive, competent, helpless, or whatever. These are just conceptual attempts to find security, wholeness, and completeness, but ultimately the strategies are bound to fail due to the falseness of the initial conceptual basis that I am a separate I. Grasp the fundamental premise that if the I is seen to be false, the effects cannot remain. There is still the seeming appearance of a person with seeming abilities and preferences, but the bondage is totally removed. Question. After reading your last email, I saw the idea rise how to prevent the fear from coming up. At that moment I realized that this was a perfect example of what you were talking about. Thought and emotions still don't have the power to affect my basic existence, so I need not use them as a gauge of my spiritual progress. Existence doesn't progress, it just is. John, yes, there is absolutely nothing to do or fix ever. Doing and fixing are outgrowths of imagining a separate person and a doer. Is there really any entity in there doing anything, making anything happen at all? Or are thoughts, feelings, and perceptions spontaneously appearing? If so, then all is happening as it is bound to happen, and there is no basis for imagining doership. Question. I guess that even if dullness or tension seems to be coming about because of grasping, ultimately, it's not going to be productive to analyze that behavior. Better to just lose interest in the story and pay more attention to the basic field of awareness. John. Yes. Ultimately, you have no control over the mind states, so let them be. Lose the concern that there is something significant about the mind and emotional states. They are simply passing states. End of story. They don't mean anything about you at all. As you clear up your real identity, the mind will take care of itself. Who is there in you to pay attention or lose interest? There can creep in the subtle idea that what you are is someone who is a separate person with the ability to choose or pay more attention. This is not really the case. You are always what you are, presence awareness. It is perfectly whole and complete now. There is no improving it, getting it, or losing it. There is no person in the machine whose attention, lack of attention, competence, or whatever is a critical factor in understanding your true nature. This idea subtly keeps the idea of a person going. Who or what is there to do or to get to be competent or anxious? As long as this idea of being a separate ghost in the machine survives, everything in life is bound to give some sense of trouble. Fundamentally, this I is not tenable and cannot survive close scrutiny. So instead of being concerned with the states or actions, realize that the real existential problem, if there is one, is the subtle sense of being a separate person that can tend to creep back into the picture. Even when this happens, it does not in fact change what you really are. You are actually free and unaffected all the time, but there is the apparent sense of suffering due to fixation on the false idea. Question. The downside of losing interest in the story is that the mind can misinterpret this as a pulling away from or aversion to activity. John, who is pulling away? Who has aversion? Can the mind really do anything except produce words and memories of past events and label things after they have happened? Living, perceiving, and feeling are happening full on all the time, without reference to the mind at all. With the emphasis off of thought, which is just a small slice of everything going on, you are more fully alive and present with what is. It is going into the mind and thoughts that is the pulling away from life as it is happening. All aversion and resistance is based on ideas and concepts about how things should be or should not be. Without that focus, you are much more fully energized, present, and alive. Question. it seems that it is still a good idea to be wholehearted and fully involved in daily activities. At least in my experience, I have found that to be the case because my job demands that I be fully engaged at all times. John, with the emphasis off of the mind and the conceptual story, you will be much more present because there is no filter. There is no person with all of its preferences and partialities trying to negotiate every experience, but who is the one who is going to try to be wholehearted and fully involved? It would only be the separate person who would try to make an attempt to become something, even wholehearted and fully involved. Awareness, the light of life that you are, is always wholehearted and fully involved because it is the factor that informs and supports all experience. There is no need to try to become something, even some more present and engaged person. This will subtly emphasize the sense of separateness, under the guise of trying to become something. The real clarity comes from seeing the absence of the person. It is the person that gums up the works and creates all the problems and supposed solutions. Just keep coming back to the fundamentals. Your nature is luminous, ever-present, radiant, perfect being awareness. This is fully realized and complete right now. There is literally nothing you need to do or practice. Just notice what is here and see that. It is actually completely present. We just overlooked it due to the old concepts and habits. Instead of getting wrapped up in the states and doing this or that, question who is the one who imagines that the states and actions are so important. You will find that it is the sense of being a separate person, something apart from the source, which is the reality, the presence, or whatever you want to call it. Question that till you see that there is no separate person there. See this deeply, and all the issues will resolve with no additional effort. It is almost unbelievable, but it is true. All problems are for the I. See that there is no I and all problems must resolve. There is a logic to it that you can confirm by direct experience. Follow-up question. Very interesting. After making that statement about trying to be wholehearted, I went to work and discovered that the same old stuff was starting to come up. For some reason I remembered what you were saying about losing interest. Then the stuff just came and went, and I did indeed lose interest in the story. And yes, you are right, all the energy I needed to do my job was there automatically. No need to try to be wholehearted. Since the story was not running, there was no tendency to want to get away from what was happening, and my focus was very naturally on my work. I worked from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. with seemingly no effort at all. It is truly amazing that people come up with so many different methods and techniques but fail to address the real issue. Chapter 18. Awareness, not an experience or practice. Questioner. In the past few days things seem to be taking a new course. I'm finding that concerns, worries, and even eager anticipation arise at times, but there doesn't seem to be much energy to pursue them. John. Yes, this sounds right. Don't expect thought to be any particular way. Do not use thoughts as a gauge of where you are at. Basically, do not define yourself with thought. It is not that thoughts or emotions, even intense emotions, do not come up. It is just that you are abiding at a completely different level, the level of the ever-present being awareness. Let thoughts come or go however they please. They mean absolutely nothing about you or anything else really. Question. Sometimes I feel intense awareness, other times not so much, but generally there is an inner knowing that there is no point or need to be concerned about it. John. There is a subtle unclarity here. You do not feel awareness as if it were an experience, and it does not really come and go, although it may appear that way. Awareness is fully present and absolutely clearly known at all times. Just ask yourself what is knowing thoughts or even the absence of thoughts. When you are not feeling awareness, what is knowing that experience? How can that experience even arise unless you are there knowing it? Just get really clear on the fact that you are that presence of awareness that is constantly and ever at the basis of everything that you experience. Don't look for awareness to be there or not there, to be clear or not clear, and so on. This will create a subtle imagined dualism. Your experience will seemingly shift as you latch onto conceptual definitions. So, what is in you right now that is present and aware? Does that ever leave you? Is it ever dimmed at any time? Even when you are totally in a cloud and in the pit of conceptual despair, you never lose your being. The awareness is completely present and free. Awareness is subtle. It is so clear that we tend to overlook it and pursue the thoughts because they seem more tangible and real somehow. Ultimately, they are just fleeting appearances arising and disappearing in the light of awareness. You are completely and fully that now. No practice or meditation is necessary, nor could it help to make the awareness any more clear than it already is. It is a matter of looking and seeing. It is pointed out again and again until it just hits you. That's what I have always been. Question: yesterday I tried to foster a heightened awareness, but it just gave me a headache. John, you cannot make it into a practice. If you try to, it won't work, as you discovered. Practices are in the mind. And the answer is not in the mind, so at some point, you just stop looking for it there. Question: it was like the contradiction that is built into any attempt to make awareness come about was so great that it hurt. I had to back off and continue to let the process unfold at its own rate. John, discard the subtle concept that there is a process. You don't approach awareness. You are awareness. There is no process to take you to your own being. Question: it can't be forced, it can only be allowed. John, just notice your ever-present nature and just relax easily into that. There is really nothing you can do to enhance anything because it is already your experience. You have just been looking in the wrong direction. So be convinced that the answer is not in the mind and that anything you try to do to approach it is from the point of view of a separate person trying to get something that he doesn't have. To see that that is all untrue. Question: so I definitely cannot do any kind of meditation except for self-inquiry. And the inquiry can't be expecting an answer. John, it is tempting to try to turn self-inquiry into a technique or practice. Then you are off to the races again as a person who is now doing self-inquiry and hopefully getting closer and closer to something yourself, I presume. To me, self-inquiry is just looking to see if the imagined separate entity at the root of all seeking is really present. So, who is that one who cannot do any meditation? Who would or would not be expecting an answer? Does the ever-present awareness that you need to meditate or inquire in order to be, to exist? Does the awareness that everything is appearing in and on need any answer? To see that all actions, techniques and answers would only be at the mind level. You do not need any techniques or answers to exist and be aware. Nor do you need any techniques or answers to know conclusively who you are. It is an intuitive and direct perception, for lack of a better word, that looks right at the core of what you are right now. You sense the presence of the life, light, being, spirit, or whatever you want to call it. It is just a presence shining at your core. Once it is pointed out, you get a taste of it. You cannot grasp it as an object, so the mind is befuddled by this. It is completely outside of the reach of the mental subject-object way of looking at things. Yet it is not difficult, because you are constantly knowing that all the time. If I ask, are you aware? Or do you exist? You instantly fire back yes, without even thinking about it. You do not need thought for this. So you can relax the attempt to use thought to know your true nature. Just see that right here, right now, something is shining within you, knowing these words and everything else. That is it. Question: I think that the main thing that has changed is that I'm not chasing thoughts around. I am not sure why. It may be that I am slowly being convinced that there really is not anything to do. John, yes, that sounds right. As you see all this more clearly, you will lose interest in thoughts and stop seeking the answers there. It sounds like that is becoming your experience. Question: previously I would have a really great meditation and then think, this is it. This is the great meditation. Just keep it up. And then when the intensity would fade, I would get concerned about it. John, once you take the focus off of the mind, This kind of thinking and experiencing fades out of the picture, but awareness presence never fades. If you see that, or rather be that, the fading will not be an issue. And even if it does fade, how would you know it is fading? The experience of fading would be something you would be experiencing in awareness. Awareness is fully present knowing that, so you are right back in the awareness, which you have never left, because that is what you are. Who is concerned? Only the imagined separate person. Look to see if it is there. When you look, you cannot find it. In seeing its absence, the concern fades out of the picture, because if the cause is seen as false, can the effects remain? To me, this is real inquiry. It is not a practice. It is just looking out of a sense of natural curiosity to know what is real. Instead of getting wrapped up in the states and conditions, look directly into the supposed person who is having the states and conditions. That will clear up things quickly, but even so, nothing has really happened, because you still are what you always have been, that untouched presence awareness. Question: now I'm not really expecting to find the great meditation. I am just kind of sitting back and watching it all unfold. Whatever happens, happens. John, that is the way it has always been. Whatever happens, happens. There is no person in there making things happen. It is all spontaneously unfolding in the light of awareness. There is really nothing to do or that you can do, because there is not anyone in there to do anything. You do not need to have the great meditation. That would be some future event that would hopefully deliver you into enlightenment or something. That is a projection of thought. Even though it appears to be a valid or even noble spiritual idea, it is still just a projection of thought. It is better to question the very concept itself. Questioning an assumption like this and discarding it leaves you in the state you are hoping to achieve in the future. This is just seeing that you do not need time or meditation experiences to be what you already are. This exposes the falseness of the conceptual cage of limitations we have built around ourselves. You do not have to do anything. Just see the false as being false. The rest takes care of itself. Chapter 19. Limitations of Spiritual Books. If your exposure to this understanding has come mainly through spiritual books, there are some possible pitfalls. I speak from experience. I read the best and clearest books for years, but there was a radical shift for me in meeting someone with a first-hand understanding. For what it is worth, I personally never met anyone in the last 30 years who conclusively realized this through reading books. It seems to me that people tend not to get this through reading books, but then again, maybe some do. I just haven't met them. By approaching this understanding through books, you can tend to overlook the obvious presence awareness. It is so simple, really, that you can make it complicated by reading too much about it. If you are going it alone, so to speak, you can have some blind spots that you are not even really aware of. Talking this over with a living teacher can quickly expose some of the subtle conceptual definitions that you may still be living by. One reason I value Bob Adamson so highly is that, in spite of my having a pretty good understanding of all this from reading books and seeing a variety of teachers over the years, it never really came home to me completely until I met him. Because he was so utterly clear on all this, it enabled me to see it for myself relatively quickly. I had never had this type of experience with other teachers. Like I said in one of my articles, it was probably due to my own confusion. I have to admit that to this day I have a preference for the way the pointing was done by Nisargadatta Maharaj and Bob Adamson. There is a penetrating clarity and energy that really worked for me. I found most other teachings to be mixed with non-essential topics. That is not to say that there are not other excellent teachers who are pointing to this same understanding. Traditionally, this understanding has usually unfolded by meeting someone with a living understanding, getting the core of the matter pointed out in no uncertain terms, and engaging in dialogue to clear up any remaining questions or doubts. One way or another, this gets pointed out and you see it. That is pretty much what it comes down to. It is a peculiar thing, but reading about our true nature usually does not seem to trigger a deep recognition. Witness the thousands upon thousands of books on Buddhism, Vedanta, non-duality, and so on that people are exposed to. Very rarely, if ever, do you hear a case of someone understanding their true nature by reading about all this in a book. However, this is not a rule, and there are cases of people spontaneously recognizing their true nature, but it seems comparatively rare. Our true nature, although ever present and exceedingly obvious, seems not to be present due to simple ignorance. Our whole mental functioning is geared towards seeking something external. Also, we are trained to use the mind as our primary instrument to understand just about everything. However, these approaches to understanding our true nature fail lamentably. This intrinsic awareness that we are is not something external, and it is not something that you can grasp with the mind or by thinking. It is too simple and clear, too basic, too easy, and so we overlook it. Even when we read the clearest, most obvious pointers to this, we are apt to read complicated and far-fetched meanings into the words, and amazingly, we continue to overlook the obvious. Another way of looking at this would be to imagine you are dreaming. You find a book in the dream, a book that describes your true nature as something beyond the dream, but the book itself is in the dream, the act of reading is in the dream, and the mind trying to understand is also in the dream. It is almost impossible for the dream subject to visualize anything outside of the dream. Even if the book states emphatically that the answer is outside of the dreamer does not apparently have any foothold outside the dream. So he continues to imagine that the book is pointing to something within the dream. I am sure many people can relate to reading the clearest books on non-duality and still feeling like the understanding is elusive. Perhaps this is the mechanism at work. If you happen to meet a living teacher with this understanding, he or she will relentlessly point you back to the core of things. Also, he or she will expose any of the mind's habitual attempts to conceptualize this understanding. Most importantly, his or her words and presence are infused, for lack of a better word, with a direct knowing of this. The energy and clarity is unmistakable. It is not something mystical, really. It is just a sense of confidence that comes from knowing firsthand and for certain. It is contagious. Once you get a taste of this for yourself, things open up quickly, because not only are you being told what the truth is in no uncertain terms, your own present awareness, but you are able to feel this in the moment of the clear pointing. This combination is an irresistible force that overcomes any remaining tendency to overlook the obvious. Chapter 20. Who identifies with thought? Questioner. I just wanted to drop you a note and let you know that I reread a lot of your articles and pondered the sense of where my awareness was. You wrote, you do not feel awareness as if it were an experience, and it does not really come and go, although it may appear that way. Awareness is fully present and absolutely clearly known at all times. Just ask yourself, what is knowing thoughts, or even the absence of thoughts? When you are not feeling awareness, what is knowing that experience? How can that experience even arise unless you are there knowing it? Just get really clear on the fact that you are that presence of awareness that is constantly and ever at the basis of everything that you experience. Don't look for awareness to be there or not there, to be clear or not clear, and so on. This will create a subtle imagined dualism. Your experience will seemingly shift as you latch onto conceptual definitions. This is exactly what was happening to me. I was all caught up in my thoughts and feelings and wondering where my awareness was. Of course, it is there all along, and it is just a matter of shifting one's identification with what you are. John: yes, that about does it. Question: do you think that this confusion has to do with people constantly having to be the doer of everything, and therefore, because there is seeming action in thoughts and emotions, we latch onto the movement and identify that as me? John: keep in mind that the idea of being a doer is an imagined concept. Awareness does not do anything. Or alternatively, you could say that awareness does everything. Either way, the key insight is that there is not a separate individual who is responsible for actions. We are so used to imagining that we do everything, that when we take to the spiritual path, so to speak, we immediately assume there is something we should do, not realizing that the real import is to understand that there is no one present to do anything. There is not really anything to do but listen to the truth being pointed out and directly see the facts as they are. It goes against the grain of everything we have been conditioned to do, but it is not difficult. Question. Thoughts come up and it seems easy to identify that as me rather than realizing that the me is behind that and ever-present and unchanging. John, if you want to go to fundamentals and really clear things up, ask, who is there in you that would be there to identify or not? Who latches onto thought or not? When you go to the root and try to find the I in the machine, you find it to be absent. There is only the presence awareness that you are. There is no separate entity to do anything, to be stuck, to identify, and so on. Then the game is up and you stand permanently in your innate freedom, which you can never lose. Just watch thoughts and notice how the subtle sense of being a separate person apart from awareness can slip in various guises. Once you see it a few times, you catch on to the game, and then you cannot be fooled anymore. Chapter 21. Questions. In response to a questioner who brought up a variety of metaphysical questions and issues, John, I feel it would be worthwhile at this point to get back to basics. A fundamental to understand is that the answer is not in the mind. Questions can be endless. Ultimately, all questions stem from a sense of separation. All questions are rooted in the sense of being a separate person who needs to know something in order to reach clarity or be at peace. You may notice that questions tend to bring in a subtle sense of separation and the presence is seemingly lost. Questions are created in the mind and only exist at the level of thought, but before, during, and after all questions you are. From my experience, peace or direct knowledge does not arise as the result of a series of mental questions and answers. These are dealing with the level of appearances. Any explanation is only a provisional explanation that may or may not be true. The approach is likely to generate more and more doubts, instead of greater clarity and certainty. The awareness that you are is ever present. All appearances rise and set upon that awareness and are not apart from it. It is all one substance, non-duality. There is only one power, one presence, one awareness at the root of everything. You are not separate from that, so there is really nothing to seek or know or do. If you see this clearly, and if you see that you are not a separate entity apart from that, all questions will resolve conclusively. If you do not get clear on the fundamentals, the questions and doubts will go on. There are endless concepts, theories, and scenarios. At some point you will realize they do not lead to certainty. The answer you are seeking is not to be found in the mind. It is natural for questions to arise for a period of time, but ultimately, you will find they all collapse. In the final analysis, awareness is all there is. There is nothing beyond it. There is nothing to achieve or know or understand with the mind. The mind is just a passing wave on the ocean of awareness that you are. All thoughts are only that same awareness. Conceptual thought is pure imagination and only leads you into the smoke and mist of metaphysical doubt. Awareness, which is your true nature, is a blazing sun of radiant light that makes the mind and the entire world possible. So turn away from the dim shadow of thought and embrace that in you that is doubtless and eternally free right now. If you must do something, try to find out if the I that you think you are really exists. Give up all other questions and pursuits. Nail down your identity and all questions are answered. Your questions are all good and well conceived, but notice that even if we methodically work through them and supply plausible answers for them, there will still remain a sense of metaphysical lack until the issue of identity is resolved. All questions and doubts are for the separate person, the imagined I. They are all at the mental level. See conclusively the absence of the separate I and all possible questions get answered. Awareness, the truth of who you are, has no doubts, questions, or problems. Do not pursue the branches and leaves, but go for the roots. Abandon all questions except what am I? Everything else is futile speculation. Chapter 22. Got the punchline. Questioner. Wow. I got the punchline to the greatest joke of all. It is just seeing that this is it. There is no story behind it. It is so simple and natural. The typing of these letters being the awareness of all perceptions of which I am not, just the awareness of it all. No words can describe the gratitude. There is no one laughing. There is no one laughing. Ha ha ha. John, this is good news. There is nowhere to go, no one to be. There is just what is, ever present, ever fresh and untouched. It is never lost. It is the basis of everything that appears and disappears. You have seen what needs to be seen, and you are what you have seen. Simply abide as that. Live in and as the spontaneous and effortless joy of your innate nature. No matter what you say, do, or think, it never leaves you. Follow-up question. Thanks for the reply. Yes, abiding in the present awareness of what is, and I am that. There is no I, really just that. Serious seeking and doing falls way in realizing that the seeker is the sought. All seeking takes one away from what one really is. It is so funny. I see what all the sages say. The past and future exist as a dream, and awakening simply is. The giggle erupts, the dream shatters, and wakefulness explodes. Laughter abounds in what is. It is all natural and simple. Home. Yahoo! Chapter 23. A View from the Satsang Trenches. Questioner. I had been reading stuff like Krishnamurti for many years. Everything he said rang true, but I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, if you know what I mean. John, I had the same experience. I really liked Krishnamurti at one point back in the 1980s. He was still alive and I was able to hear him talk. I had been interested in theosophy and things like that. I was attracted to colorful and romantic spiritual stuff like mysterious yogis in inaccessible Himalayan caves and such. It was great fun for a teenage boy. Krishnamurti said that was all useless. You needed to inquire into truth for yourself. That hit home, and I lost interest in those other things, but real understanding eluded me. Other than that, no real lights went on. Question. From there I went on and read other things, some Zen, some Buddhist, some philosophy. John, ditto. I read the Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, which is the story and teachings of one of the founders of Zen Buddhism in China. I really enjoyed it, but didn't really understand what he was pointing to. Question. I stumbled onto Satsang about 2 years ago. This has rung the truest, but still there has been something unclear, unfinished, unsatisfied. I have had many cool experiences in Satsang, including that clear, spacious awareness, but still there has not been that knowledge of my true nature that is unshakable. John, contemporary Satsangs have a lot of clarity and promote a sense of peace, but for most people, at least from what I have seen, the experience does not last. They are slipping into states almost by accident, but the understanding is not communicated in a decisive and clear way. In other words, there is an element of doubt or lack of knowledge. The roots of ignorance are not fully exposed, and you keep cycling back into old patterns. I had this same experience for years, until I met Bob Adamson. What he was presenting was at a different level than what is usually happening at a contemporary satsang. What he was sharing was more direct and concentrated. It didn't get into the spiritual paraphernalia, like trying to be spiritual, be quiet, meditate, or anything like that. Plus, it was coming from a living tradition in a very direct manner, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Question. When I read your articles, they make me feel spacey and big, and I find myself feeling yes to the words instead of the usual yes, but no internal fight is going on. John, when you come across something clear and obvious, it tends to undercut the mind and the old views in a very direct way. It is not a practice of being still or trying to assimilate someone else's experience. It is the direct looking for yourself as to what is true within you now. Meeting a teacher with a living understanding of all this can be immensely helpful because he or she can help you avoid the irrelevant issues. With a good teacher, the emphasis is never on the teacher as such, but on the revelation of your true nature. Even refined attitudes and practices of spiritual seekers are often based on subtle ideas of being a separate, albeit a more spiritual, person. So the fundamental issues go uninvestigated. However, it is all part of the growth and the unfolding. You seek out the best teaching that you can find and stick with it till you experience what it has to offer. Then you move on. Like we all do. If you are lucky enough to come across a Nisargadatta Maharaj or a Bob Adamson, the buck stops here because you are finally encouraged to take things right to the roots. It is a notable shift of focus. You sense the difference in your own experience of clarity and freedom. It comes swiftly and directly, because all the veils are removed. There is simply a direct pointing to that which is clear, radiant, and present in your actual experience. The idea of separation is clearly exposed as a false, unexamined till now assumption. The seemingly separate person is fully exposed and the roots of bondage are cut decisively. For someone serious about freedom, this is the ultimate medicine, as Nisargadatta Maharaj called it. Question: maybe I am just worn down and I am giving up the search for the Big Bang that I have grown to expect from reading so many awakening stories. Still, I would like to have that unshakable knowing. John: even searching for awakening becomes another adornment of the separate seeker hoping to attain oneness. There is no future awakening event, attainment, or experience. Consider this deeply. Simply look into what you are right now and see what is present. If you get into the "when will I attain it" type of thinking, just notice that that is a passing thought appearing in the living light of your awareness. That awareness is with you right now. It is not apart from you. You do not need to seek it because you are it. See that whatever comes up, you stand always as that awareness. There is no meditation or path or satsang or reading needed. If such things are legitimate, they only point to what is present right now. So all you have to do is look for yourself and see. You can do that right now. It is key to see that understanding alone is needed. Everything else is preparation to bring you to the point of looking for yourself. There is no substitute for your own direct seeing. The teacher repeatedly points you in the direction of your ever-present awareness until you see it. What the best teachers are pointing to as that is your actual being awareness. You never gain or lose it. It is innate. At some point you just start to notice it. The old habits may kick in for a while, but this approach does a really good job of exposing them, and they simply fall away of their own accord. And the truth that you see just shines all the more clearly. Then you see that this is what you are and always have been. It is not a month or year-long practice at all. It depends more upon your interest and earnestness and the clarity of the pointing. At least that is my view of it. Question: any additional advice you may have would be most welcome. John: if you are responding to this, then you are ripe and ready, so just follow your heart and your own deeper wisdom, and everything will unfold as it is meant to do for you. You need not have any doubts about this. Chapter 24, Nisargadatta Maharaj in his own words. Here are a couple of quotes from Nisargadatta Maharaj. The first is from a pamphlet he wrote entitled Self-Knowledge and Self-Realization. It is referenced in the book Godmen of India by Peter Brent. Nisargadatta Maharaj: the ever-awaited first moment was the moment when I was convinced that I was not an individual at all. The idea of my individuality and welfare had set me burning up to then. The scalding pain was beyond my capacity to endure. But there is not even a trace of it now. I am no more an individual. There is nothing to limit my being now. With the disappearance of the evil signs of individuality, and the accompanying defects, the ideas of acquisition and renunciation have automatically dropped away. The ever-present anxiety and the gloom of the smoldering heart have vanished, and I am all beatitude, pure knowledge, pure consciousness. My present experience of the world, as the divine expression is not for any profit nor for any loss, but is the pure, simple, natural flow of beatific consciousness. It is the unique, blissful experience of the primal unity. Every object in the universe has lost its objectivity. He that once meditated on bliss and peace is himself the ocean of bliss and peace. The next quote is from Godmen of India by Peter Brent. Nisargadatta Maharaj, see, the guru and the disciple are like two kernels in one jackfruit, one raw, the other ripe. The raw one wants to be ripe, the ripe one is ripe and wants nothing more. While the raw one feels different, it will continue to demand, to want something, but there is no difference, it is all one jackfruit, all the same stuff. The difference is only felt by the unripe. When I met my guru, I experienced the ripeness in him. Now that ripeness is in myself, I am one with my guru. There is no separation, everything that I am is my guru. At the start I used to ask myself, what is the guru? What is the disciple? But now I no longer ask myself such questions because they are meaningless. There is no separation, so there can be no answers, no explanation, there is only being. Chapter 25, Going Deeper with the Inquiry. Questioner, I am sitting down to write, but it seems kind of silly to talk about myself and what has been happening. So, whatever I am going to say will surely contain some contradiction. John, there is no need to worry. Talking and writing are limited, but that doesn't mean you have to restrain yourself either. Thinking and talking are just a natural part of the flow. Personally, I think it is part of the process to dialogue about this. It is just a way to clear the undergrowth and can be a help. Question, one thing is really clear. I have never ever seen the ego. There is absolutely no evidence that it exists, only hearsay, only assumptions. So if I only accept what I can actually witness, it is awfully hard to go on believing that the ego exists. John, this is really a key thing to see and consider. It undercuts the core of all separation and limitation. Just because you start to see this or consider it, the habit of thinking the I is real may not die down overnight. There is just an inertia to it from being assumed to be there for many years, but just keep coming back to that insight and look at it in different ways, just out of a natural sense of curiosity. Try not to turn it into a practice, method, or technique with some specific imagined goal. Who would practice it? Who would pursue a goal? Only the imagined separate I. It has to become really interesting to see how that idea can pop back into the picture in various ways. But then you start to see it more and more, and you are not taken in by it. At some point it is almost humorous. It is fascinating to see how this non-existent I had been the focus of so much mental and emotional activity. I just want to stress it is not a test. Think of the common things that come up. When will I finally see this and be enlightened? When will the ego drop away? I'm not there yet, and so on. These are all purely imaginary dilemmas. This is the very ego sense at work. Just ask who? Who is not there or whatever. Only the false idea that I am a separate I. That there is no I. Bingo. One way or another you have seen this, so it is all shadow boxing with an imaginary opponent. Then take a few moments to ask, what am I really? Am I not the awareness now? Do I need to attain that? Is there any problem with that? Then you are right back in the clarity, which has always been there. You just forgot it through getting engrossed in the imagination. Still, you never actually left who you are. You do not have to make the thoughts or imagination go away. It is more just the seeing what is happening. Once you see the mechanism, it may continue, but you do not care. It does not affect you. There is a subtle dualism in expecting the thoughts to change or go away. It makes no difference to awareness if thoughts are there or not. So who cares? The imagined person again. It is a great relief to see that you don't have to do anything at all with the mind. Question, yet the habitual thought process continues to conjure up the notion. When I notice this, the question simply arises again, is there an ego, and if so, where is it? Not being able to find it, the question subsides. John: yes, you just notice it. The old momentum, like I said, is there for a while, but you cannot really get fully embroiled in it anymore. It is an obvious fact that there is no ego in the machine. At first you investigate it and check it out. At times the old habits pop up, so you look again, perhaps repeatedly. At some point it just sinks in at a gut level and you are convinced. Then the investigation drops away naturally. For example, your name is Bill or whatever, so do you have to go around thinking I am Bill all the time? At some point it is just your constant knowledge. It is the same with seeing that there no I. You investigate for a while, looking and seeing for yourself. At some point you see it conclusively and the looking is done. There just is not a separate I. It is a fact. That is the end of the road. You cannot really do much with the fact. It just is. Question: that is the crux of the issue, it seems. What appears in consciousness has little relevance. Sometimes there is mental lucidity, other times mental dullness. Sometimes the body feels good, other times not so good. It does not really matter too much anymore. John: it looks like you have come pretty far along with all this. Not that there is anywhere to go. To me there are two facets to all of this. First, there is the presence awareness that is the clear, constant base of all appearances. This is your real identity. Second, there is the absence of the separate person or I. This is the illusory or mistaken sense of yourself. To me they are both key. Some Buddhist approaches have a good handle on the absence of an I, but it seems dry somehow, kind of empty, no pun intended. Some approaches focus on the absolute, but do not really expose the mechanism of the false I. It keeps popping back into picture. So, even as you take time to explore the absence of the I, which is key, also continue to sense and explore that everything is appearing in that radiant, lucid, free and untouched awareness. Contemplate what it means to simply be that. The looking into that may come and go, and you may need to check in on that, but there is also a point where you just know that for certain too. If there are knotty or thorny issues that keep popping up in spite of seeing all this, it is good to get them out for a look. I did that with Bob Adamson. It was just a clearing up of some mental flotsam and jetsam. I found it to be a great help to undercut places where I would tend to cycle back to sometimes, in spite of seeing the basics. Seeing that the separate I is not there is hugely important because all the other self-limiting ideas are rooted in that. If the root is taken care of, the other issues take care of themselves. So keep coming back to the basics. Question: anyway, that's my latest report. John: it is nice to hear how things are unfolding. Everything sounds good. Chapter 26. Really question the sense of I. Questioner: I received Bob Adamson's book and first CD approximately 2 weeks ago. I was familiar with the terms used, so I listened to the CD immediately and started the book as well. Bob's direct approach is very effective. He has a way of being very blunt and to the point. He cuts to the core very quickly and effectively. Very few words are wasted. It is really refreshing and helpful to hear someone actually speak about non-duality and the natural state, rather than just reading about it. As you may well be aware, there are not any teachers or non-dual gatherings in this area. South Dakota is America's outback. I am rereading the book and listening to the CD whenever I have the chance. I feel my understanding has been there for 4 to 5 months, but what remains to be done, for lack of a better way of putting it, is the total dropping of the I. Somehow the I is hanging in there by a thread, in my opinion, and still wants to be in charge. However, this is not a strong feeling anymore, due to frequent investigation and looking for the I. Also, your article "All Problems Are for the I" is very good and has been helpful. The sense of I just seems to be lingering in the background. I have found that continually coming back to presence awareness is surprisingly effective. It keeps me within, here and now, where I should be. Intuition tells me that I just need to stick to it, and eventually it will dawn on me, and there will be an understanding. This is not an anxious sort of sticking with it, but an effortless effort of coming back to presence awareness and investigation of the I. John, it looks like you are experiencing Bob's unique and powerful style, for lack of a better way of saying it. I can appreciate that. That was exactly my position on all this as well. I found his website and something resonated. Then I went to the book and the experience continued and deepened. Then I got the CDs and listened to them often. I also reread the book at intervals. It was all just a reminder, a pointing back to that which is ever present. You are right to see that this is not an anxious endeavor. It is just being drawn into the clarity naturally and effortlessly. I found no more clear pointers in my search than Bob's materials. I also began communicating with one of his students by email. Things continued to shift and I knew I was really onto something. And so are you, so just stay with the unfolding. Whatever is to happen happens. Now that you have a taste of your true nature as presence awareness, there is a natural drawing to the clarity, and the contrary ideas get exposed. Whatever you need for that to happen will happen, for you have never been running the show anyway. The deeper intelligence within will have its way with the imagined you that you may sometimes think you are. So let's get down to this issue of the separate I. Point blank, there isn't one. It is a fiction. There has never been any such thing. It is a subtle trap if you can say that there is something to drop. That presupposes that it is there and needs to be dropped. There is only an assumption that the I is there. You already have a sense, through investigation, that the I is not, so do not let it in the back door by thinking you have to drop it, and that it is still hanging by a thread. That is too much drama. If you see these types of thoughts coming up, do not believe them. Use them as an opportunity to investigate. If you catch yourself saying something like that I is hanging by a thread, or even I need to stick with it, or whatever, really look at that. What is that is hanging by a thread? Who needs to stick with anything? That is I. What is this supposed I? Can you find it? Am I an imagined I? Or am I the present awareness, which is already here, complete and needing nothing? Am I really a separate I? And if so, where is this thing? You are actually completely free now. There is nothing to drop, nothing to wait for. It is only the unexamined beliefs that give the appearance that something is wrong, but what is wrong if you don't think those thoughts? They are only assumptions. They are not true. Like I say, even if the thought I am not there yet appears, what is that appearing in or on? Isn't it the awareness? So the idea is false. You can be totally free now. You are totally free now. The teacher will ruthlessly throw you back on this point again and again. Do not imagine it takes time. It does not. All time is useless delay. You will never attain any deeper understanding in the future than what is present and fully here now. I think you are about as close to this as you can be without falling completely into it. The last little push I can give you is that there is nowhere to go, nothing to do and nothing to get. You are already where you need to be. All else is imagination. And even that does not move you from your real being. There is no one who needs to have the final understanding, because that one who needs the final understanding is not there. The last illusion is that there is someone there who needs to be free or get it. Right here, right now, there is a clear, luminous center of pure being awareness at your core which makes all thought, perception, and feeling possible. Everything arises and sets within that. You are that now. See that. Be that. Let that resonate. Chapter 27. What are you looking for? Questioner. I appreciate all of the extra time you spent speaking with me last night. I still don't really connect with the idea that there is something truly much deeper about who I am. I still connect with my body very much and all of the pain and suffering that I experience being Tom. I get overwhelmed sometimes by the demands of my work, and the feelings of inadequacy that arise when my creative skills are challenged. It keeps me from taking risks with the level of work I am willing to accept. John, there are several aspects woven into all this that can be looked at, but basically your issues revolve around your experiences as a person in the realm of apparent life and daily living. What you are describing are the normal experiences that people go through before looking deeply into themselves. It all centers around the concept of being a person, which was picked up and has been developed since childhood. These issues clear up pretty easily through knowing your true nature, which is free of the personality. Question: maybe what you said about it not being some big mystical thing is part of the problem. Maybe I can't relate because I don't see it for what it is, something very straightforward and accessible right now. I don't yet see how this simple truth can cause a shift that would remove the types of worrying and anxiety that is currently part of the experience of being me, Tom. John, why is a shift needed? Do not set up goals and expectations, and then measure your failures based on the self-imposed limits. Self-centered activity like worrying, conflict, anxiety, fear, and so on is rooted in the belief in ourselves as isolated, limited personalities, localized and identified with the body. The stuff continues to plague you till you investigate the whole notion of being a person and a body. You need to put some solid inquiry into the question, who am I? You can't assume some statement as an ideal and expect your daily life to shift. You need to do the homework, cover the basics. Question: I think the biggest issue is my belief in separation. Does that disappear? Or do you go right on being a body, but with a different understanding? John, separation disappears once and for good. The body continues. There are no problems with that. You cease to imagine that you are the body and limited by its limitations. You cease to imagine that you are the person with its limitations. The mind and body continue as before and function just as they always have. Your exclusive identification with them snaps. An immense freedom and peace follow. And you do not lose them. Question: last night I asked a question about purpose. Why are we here experiencing this? I know the simplest answer is why not. But that is not quite satisfying for me. What do you believe on a daily basis that addresses, for yourself, the question, why go through all of this? This question has come up for me several times in my life at a time when there really seemed to be no answer. My thought was, then why not end it? Of course, that was a thought in a severe depression, but I have occasion to have that thought when life just seems to be too much for putting up with this existence. John, these are all insoluble riddles as long as you are not clear on your identity. Who is asking? Who wants to know? Who is depressed? Who is putting up with this existence? It is the imagined separate person. If you resolve the core question and see through the false concept of being a separate person, all of these questions and problems get resolved directly in experience. They simply cease to exist. You may not be able to see this now. Then take it on faith and give it some time. Give yourself a chance to go into all this deeply and see if you see a change in your life. Otherwise, you are a victim of ideas and assumptions which might not be true. Of course, any action you take based on false premises is not going to lead to freedom. Question: I may be way off track, but this is what appeared as I was writing you. I believe in the possibility that this is just consciousness appearing moment to moment, and that I have no control over appearances or my thoughts, but I have the need for it to have some sort of benefit, to provide me the opportunity to relax into myself, to stop all the worrying and feelings that I'm not good enough, that I'm not talented enough, or I am overwhelmed by something that I can't manage. John, this all just shows that the understanding of what is being pointed out has not really sunk in yet. There is no need to stop the mind. There is nothing wrong and nothing that you have to do. Do not create an extra burden. This is not a test with some goal that you are trying to get to. You have read a lot, but now you need to go more deeply into the core of things. You have been skimming over things at an intellectual level, which is fine, but you do not want to end up there. At this point, you do not really need more reading of all and sundry books and pursuing the next teacher. Whatever inspiration you have gotten, it must lead to your own first-hand inquiry. What is my true nature? What is real? What do I want? What is the cause of my suffering? Do not be satisfied with words and platitudes, but do some real inquiry. For any answers to be meaningful, you need to find answers that are relevant to you. Question: what do I need to do at this point? What is missing? Or more appropriately, what needs to fall away in order to be free from all of this? John, you need only look deeply to see what you really are. Are you just a mind in a body, or are you the eternal, birthless, deathless awareness in which everything is appearing and disappearing? The resolve is to conclusively discover your real identity. Basically, I would say don't despair. Many have found a way out of this impasse, and so can you. Before you jump to any conclusions, give things a chance to unfold a bit. The mind crafts a series of paradoxes and dilemmas and then gets frustrated because it can't extricate itself from its own imagined limitations. If you cannot quite see it, then take it on faith and at least give it some time. All I can say is that it is undoubtedly possible to find the type of peace and fulfillment you are looking for. If you are looking for purposes, then here are some. To find happiness, to realize your true self, to be one with God, to be free of suffering, to know what transcends death, to know what is real, to be truly at peace. If you must have a goal, any of these will do. They are all variants on a similar theme. If you pursue any of them resolutely, they all have a way of bringing you back to the same core understanding. But what is your goal? What are you looking for? Do not make this into some abstract pursuit. It means nothing if it is not the pursuit and fulfillment of the deepest longings of your own heart and being. I get the sense that maybe you might be trying to adapt to the words and experiences of others, but what is it that you are really searching for? It has got to relate to something that is important to you. Otherwise, it is trying to fit into someone else's shoes. Do not get your head in the clouds by reading all the non-dual stuff and trying to assert your way into something that does not really move you at a gut level. That is the classic experience of asserting I am that while the rest of your personal life and relationships are in chaos. So, I would say, set aside the books and non-dual theories and really give some thought to what you are looking for. What is it that would give you the fulfillment you are seeking? Is it peace? Love? Knowledge? A harmonious life? Knowledge of the purpose of existence? Try to latch onto something with some oomph that makes sense to you and gives you motivation, and that you can relate to. Tearing through boatloads of non-dual books is one thing, but what is it that you are really seeking in that and other endeavors in your life? Try to get that out into the field of awareness. And the seeking has more meaning. It is not very meaningful to leap to the heights of someone else's agenda if the longings in your own heart are not being tended to. Like I said at the beginning, there is definitely a resolve for all of this. Many have found peace, and you can too. Chapter 28. Nothing needs to change. Questioner: the message about myself comes through momentarily, but not yet in an impactful way. I have been experiencing a bit of anxiety, and it's tough knowing that there is a way out of this, but I just can't see it yet. I have a sense that I will get it one day. I look forward to seeing you again. John, hang in there. It is not as tricky as it seems. Just remember that all difficulties are created in the mind. All problems are just problems imagined in the mind, in response to unexamined ideas and assumptions about what we are. The great liberating factor of this is that nothing needs to change in the activity of the world, the body or the mind. It might change as a result of seeing more clearly what your true nature is, but then again, it does not have to either. Anxiety and fear are really just a response to a sense of threat to who we take ourselves to be. Once you clear up the matter of your identity, the emotions and reactions take care of themselves, and whatever comes up is fine. You are not fighting or resisting things, but it is not a matter of cultivating non-resistance or anything like that. You literally cannot do anything to provoke this understanding. A little clear seeing and investigating and everything falls into place straight away. Just remember that knowing who you are is not a future event to be obtained. If you approach it that way, it just pushes it out and you overlook what is here now. Right now you are present and aware. This awareness is what you really are. It is completely free of your personality, thoughts, and experiences. And if you look deeply into your present experience, you will find that you are standing in and as freedom itself. There is no enlightenment beyond looking deeply into what is present right now and simply abiding as that. Chapter 29, Faith, Trust, and Confidence. Questioner: I have to say that this is the first time I feel I can truly take someone's your word on what I'm hoping to understand, that it is achievable and real. Something in the background reassures me, however faintly, that I will have this understanding. My mind tries to grasp it, and then has to recede for a lack of understanding. I think what I might need help with is the investigation. I've always been one to delay gratification, and I think that conditioning is something I bump up against. After 40 years I feel I am close to the truth. Putting off that discovery sounds like a ridiculous thing to do, but self-inquiry isn't something I am able to stay with for very long. Thank you for your continued support. John: from my experience, the understanding really comes more through faith, trust, and confidence than due to anything else. I had been involved in various spiritual pursuits for about 30 years. When I met Bob Adamson, he simply assured me this understanding was possible, based on his experience with Nisargadatta Maharaj. His utter confidence in his own experience, along with his encouragement that I also could see this, was probably more impactful than anything else. In fact, I know it was. The actual substance of the teaching is simple and can be pointed out directly. It literally is not a mental process or any technique at all. It is just noticing something that is actually present, the principle of awareness. It is also seeing that the person that you think is there isn't. No amount of thinking can be equated with the actual seeing of this. To use a simplistic example, is thinking about an apple the same as tasting a real one? It is the same with all of this. The books are just maps bringing you up to the brink of the actual direct knowing. It is like reading guidebooks about trails to the top of Half Dome. You can read them all day long, but by just reading, you are not actually moving out of your armchair, however profound your knowledge may be. So what is going to get you out of your chair? Faith, trust, and confidence in what is being pointed out. For most people, this seems to arise through personal contact with someone who has realized this and can speak from first-hand experience. It is really key to get the basic point involved in this. Anyway, this is all possible for you. There is no need to doubt it. If it worked for me, it can work for you. Chapter 30, Nothing to Do. Questioner: I wanted to give you some feedback on our phone consultation. I can't put into words what is different, but for the most part searching mostly stopped. I was meditating 1 to 2 hours a day and reading 2 to 3 hours a day. Since we talked, I have not meditated at all. I tried once, but it only lasted about 1 minute. There is just nothing to do. About the only thing I read is your website, which just keeps getting clearer and clearer. My wife said that I seemed a lot more content over the past couple of weeks. Again, I don't really know what is different other than a sense of being near the end. I am certainly still identified with my thoughts in mind, but they have for the most part lost their punch. John, I am glad to hear things are clearing up. It is a good sign that your wife is noticing some changes. Something is working. Of course, the final test is always your own direct sense of freedom. It is just a relaxing into something that is intimately present and well known, but it just went unnoticed till now. Once you get a taste of who you really are, it takes the wind out of the sails of the mind. All the straining, struggling, and seeking start to evaporate. Even the age-long quest for spiritual understanding, meditating, and all the rest start to fall away when you sense yourself at the goal, which is simply being yourself. Chapter 31. Is this for real? Questioner. You must understand that I cannot help but ask you, is this for real? My spiritual search has only intensified over the years, though I keep it mostly very private these days. I spend the majority of my free time alone reading Ramesh Balsekar, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Y.W.Y. Wayne Lickerman, Tony Parsons, and so on. I am deeply immersed in this teaching pretty much constantly, though I'd say probably not a single person in my life is aware of this consuming passion of mine. I have read several of the pages on your website, and the words you write seem legitimate and in keeping with what I have come to recognize as true non-duality, but I am also cynical beyond all description by now. Is it so? Have you reached this understanding? If it is, what have I missed? What is the piece I am overlooking? Can you tell me? It is quite clear to me that there is nothing more I need to understand, but it is also clear to me that I have missed the thing entirely. John, the articles on my website are about the best I can communicate in words my experiences. Most of the material was written in sharing with people by email. The best way to share this, though, is through talking and meeting in person. Even talking on the phone seems to be better, but email and written words are at least an attempt to provide some hints and pointers. It sounds like you have been moving in some pretty good company, as far as the teachings you have gravitated towards. This reminds me a lot of where I was prior to my meeting with Bob Adamson. I eventually sought out Bob Adamson because I had a strong resonance with Nisargadatta Maharaj and was hoping to meet someone who had been with him. I had a strong desire to meet someone who I felt could talk from direct experience about this. I saw many contemporary teachers, but most, if not all, did not really seem to be living in the full experience of freedom. There were elements of clarity and freedom, but also other non-essentials mixed in, which was confusing. I knew intuitively that if anyone had truly realized their true nature beyond all doubt, Nisargadatta had done so. So meeting one of Nisargadatta's living students and talking about all this was an incredible experience. In meeting Bob, there was a dramatic shift, and it seemed to be just what I was looking for to bring me across the final mile, so to speak. This is just a way of talking. You eventually see that there is literally nowhere to go because your true nature is here and now. Nor is there anyone who needs to get there. Bob was able to make the understanding very immediate and accessible for me. In a few conversations, things that I had read and thought about for years were suddenly clarified in a direct way. Literally, there was more understanding and growth through a single conversation with him than several years of reading and meditating on my own had been able to generate. Much to my amazement, I found that different aspects of the non-dual teachings were unfolding in my own experience and first-hand understanding. And it was much simpler than I had imagined. The books and teachings can tend to obscure the immediacy and simplicity of this. The mind, even in its most noble attempts, tends to make things more complicated. That is why it is so valuable to be sitting face to face with someone who really knows what they are talking about. It cuts through all the irrelevant issues and brings you back to the immediacy and availability of understanding your true nature fully in the present moment for yourself. After about a week and a half with Bob, I discovered the spiritual quest was over, that knowledge of my real nature was clear and solid, that there was no possibility of losing this understanding. Bob's teaching definitively exposed the roots of ignorance, bondage and limitation in a profoundly clear way. Once the mechanism is exposed and is seen through, it is over, and you can't really go back to the old point of view. It is all about direct first-hand experience. Once you see all this for yourself, the search is done. The need for books, retreats, and teachers is over. They are all pointing to this understanding of who we are. Once that is your experience, you do not need the pointers anymore. I myself had come to a point where I almost didn't believe it was really possible to reach this understanding. Fortunately, I was wrong. Bob said that Nisargadatta put him beyond the need for further help. Bob did the same for me. And so it continues. Bob mentioned to me later that if what I had discovered through his teaching was meaningful, I might consider talking about this with others. That has resulted in my attempts to share this. I just want to emphasize that this is all much, much simpler than we ever imagined. You can definitely and conclusively know your true nature and experience freedom from suffering and doubt. It is not a matter of time or effort or waiting around for it to drop out of the sky. It just takes a little bit of clear seeing. It is really a combination of the clarity of the pointing and your desire to be free. Here are some key points to consider by way of review. Your own sense of existence awareness is immediately known and available at all times. It is not an attainment. There is no technique or process involved. You cannot gain it or lose it. It is here now. Knowing this fully is all the understanding there is. You just need to see it clearly. Thoughts and experiences never obscure your true nature. It is always completely free and available. We just did not see it because we were looking in the wrong direction. Once it is clearly pointed out to us, we can see this directly and with no effort. Once you see that who you are is constantly with you, you do not have an experience of moving in and out of peace or clarity. It is only due to contrary concepts that we seem to lose it. In fact, the thoughts are mistaken. Once we see this, the thoughts lose their grip. The belief that you are a separate person is the cause of all ignorance, suffering, anxiety, doubt, fear, and so on, that is to say, all self-centered thinking. Have a direct look to see if you can find the person you have imagined yourself to be. Ask yourself questions such as, am I really separate from my nature as presence awareness? And does the assumed separate person that I imagine myself to be really exist? This is not a practice or technique. You just have to look directly and clearly. Once you see that there never has been a person, all problems are resolved conclusively. All problems are for the person, not for your real nature. You just get clear on what you really are, and that is the end of the game. This does not take time really. It is more a matter of clear seeing. As long as there is a remnant of belief in separation, the separation seems to continue, but it is all imagination based on a lack of investigation. A few well-placed questions dismantle the whole facade, and you find yourself easily and naturally in your natural state of clarity, presence, and freedom. And it does not leave you. You cannot lose what you are. Talking directly about this helps to make it clear. Your own doubts and questions get undermined, and the living experience becomes your own. That seems to be how it works for most people. Chapter 32, that being like a camera. Questioner, thank you for sending out Bob Adamson's book and CDs. I listened to CD 1 and started reading the book. One comment struck home deep within. It was the equation of that being like a camera, always recording, both sight and sound. Once a thought enters the picture, such as now in this message, something has been added appearing like an overlay, but the camera is still recording. This camera is silent, silent, silent. Bob mentions a slight, subtle vibration to that silent recording. There aren't more words to add to the description of that, because the mind cannot add to nothing. As a silent reminder, an old camera has been placed on the counter in the kitchen. John, I am glad to hear you got the materials. It sounds like they are triggering some good insights. Good news. It is interesting to notice what is registering everything. Is that concerned with what is appearing? Is that dividing, conceptualizing, labeling anything? Or is there just seeing, hearing, touching, feeling, knowing everything as is? Sometimes they talk about it using the metaphor of a mirror. All the reflections, good, bad, indifferent, appear in the mirror, but is the mirror concerned or affected in any way? It is the same with the awareness that you are. It is silent, luminous, bright, clear, empty, and yet the foundation of all that appears. On one of the CDs, Bob talks about this presence that you are as cognizing emptiness. That is one of my favorite terms for it. Right at the center of you is a silent, lucid, clear and sky-like presence of awareness. It is totally empty and yet utterly existent and aware. That never leaves you and you cannot get out of it. Just notice that. It is what you are and it is never affected by thoughts or appearances. It is always radiant and clear. All the words are just pointing to you, to your present nature. So simply enjoy all the names and descriptions for what they are, pointers to the one essence, which is with you all the time. Chapter 33, Just Seeing. Questioner, okay. Let me say something that seems clear right now. This sense of aliveness, beingness, presence or awareness is here. Following that is awareness of something, whether body, thought, trees, emotions, safety pins, other bodies, etc. But the sense of beingness is primary. Even I is a thought. Emotions, thoughts, and experiences come and go, but they come and go in this simple awareness presence. There is no problem with any of it until I begins thinking there is a problem, that something should be different. I want something, I am confused, I am upset, and so on. In fact, even then, there is no problem because all of it is just passing in the clear space of awareness, including the thought there is an I who has a problem. It's just about seeing this and there is no one to see it, there is just seeing. All of it is happening on its own, including the activities of this body-mind. John, you are getting the hang of this. As things start to sink in, the insights trigger shifts in your direct experience. You just notice that things that were previously troubling you fall away. They do not have the same effect as they used to. The roots of ignorance, limitation and suffering are exposed once and for good. The present clarity, which has been here all along, just gets clearer and more obvious. This is what you have been seeking all along. The thoughts and ideas that we have about ourselves are the only bondage there really ever is. The bondage is only apparent though. It is not real. Our seeming problems and daily experiences become doorways into an inquiry that takes you straight to the heart of things. The seeing is completely present and available now. It is never a matter of time, but only of simply seeing, looking and noticing what is in your own direct experience. What you are seeing and saying is good. All the books and teachings only lead you to a certain point, but then you must see it for yourself. Now it is your turn to live the understanding for yourself. Once you start to see all this, nothing or no one can take it away from you. It becomes your own. Enjoy the unfolding. Follow-up question. It really hit me while driving yesterday that what you said was so necessary. It is critical that I look at my own experience and let that scene guide me as opposed to my thoughts about what others report. When I just read the words of others, what is happening is that I'm reading about their thoughts. It can have the effect of just giving me more concepts as opposed to direct experience. It really is finally about the looking itself, isn't it? The question that I had about consciousness or awareness arising from the body, or the body existing in it, is really just another path back into the intellect or concepts. From this perspective now, it looks as if all questions are very tricky and sticky in that they can quickly lead one back into the intellect rather than this openness. However, it also looks like each question points in two directions. One direction back into concepts, thinking or the intellect, and the other direction towards seeing who has the question or who is aware of the question. Is this what you are suggesting when you say daily life can be the doorway into inquiry? John, it is great to see you are really looking into all this and seeing it for yourself. That is what needs to happen. Your insights are clear. If you keep up this investigating and looking, you are going to see some profound shifts in how you view and experience things. Your actual experience is always the acid test. It is not that the questions are tricky or sticky really. We just never examined them clearly and have been living under false assumptions about what life is and who we are. That was tricky and sticky. A little bit of reasoning and questioning is all it takes. Or as you say, just seeing. Suddenly, the whole house of cards begins to fall apart. The questions and doubts that have been plaguing us lose their hold because we see that they are based on flimsy assumptions. That is what I mean by using your actual problems and daily experiences for the inquiry. You watch the mind and start to notice how the sense of separation arises and how the ideas in the mind lead us into confusion. At some point it hits home that the answer is not in the mind. The mind cannot get this. Nor can the mind solve basic life questions, the deeper issues. So you stop looking to the mind to provide the answers and you stop being concerned about its conceptual problems, which are only manufactured out of thin air. They have no real substance. Once you see it, you simply stop going there to the mind, and you save yourself a lot of confusion and grief. But still you are. Life is. Awareness, intelligence, reality are here, shining in the middle of everything. Your innate happiness and peace come back into focus, because they were only covered over by the sense of separation and all the false ideas we used to believe. The childlike wonder and openness of our clearer moments unfolds and widens. Then you notice that this is just the natural state of things. Stay with all this. It will continue to unfold and the insights will deepen until they become your own. Then you will know for certain, and you will not need any books or teachers to point all this out. You will see it for yourself. From that perspective, books and teachers can only confirm what you already know. Chapter 34. Question the person and its stories. Questioner, being awakeness, freedom is shouting, I am here, this is my natural state, how I really am, my real way of being, the real me. At the same time, I feel a limit on being free and awake. This limit is uncomfortable. John, there is not any limit on your real nature. You are present and aware. This true nature that you are is right at this moment fully present. This approach is just looking deeply into what is here and now and realizing that what you are is in fact already absolutely free. The limits are ultimately imagined and not true at all. The mind creates and imagines limits and then suffers, but the suffering is only due to the fact that we have not been clear on what we are. We take the self-created limits to be true and real. This gives the feeling or experience of limitation, but it fades when scrutinized. For example, you are convinced there is a ghost in the room and are in a fright. But when you search for it, you do not find any ghost and the experience of fear drops away. It is based on a wrong understanding. A little bit of investigation and clear seeing clears up the mistaken ideas, and the feeling of limitation is replaced by the natural freedom of your true nature. Imagining a ghost in the room is uncomfortable. This continues until you question the truth of it. Basically, we imagine we are separate from our own deeper truth and suffer under false assumptions. The moment you fall asleep or the mind forgets its problems, the limitation vanishes. This just goes to show that the limits are produced in the mind. They do not really exist except at a conceptual level. Question: being unawake is uncomfortable, unnatural. The limit or block to awakening has the flavor to me of a being heart issue. It is almost like I recoil from my natural state, like the blossoming truth is threatening and thus resisted. Thus, simplicity or oneness is prevented. So I don't get the rest and simple being that I so crave. It feels like this recoil response is unnecessary, but it arises compulsively. It seems like it arises prior to the mind, at the level of a body emotion heart response that is then reflected in the mind. It seems to me that the healing needs to somehow happen at the level of body emotion heart to be effective. John, this all may seem to be true, but really it is hypothetical. From within the cage of imagined limitations and using the mind, which is the very source of the problem, we imagine escape routes and explanations. You are the natural state. You never deviate from it. There is no separation or problem, but you do not see it yet because you have not looked deeply enough into the root of the issue, which is the assumption that you are a separate person apart from your real nature of awareness. You say thus, I don't get the rest and simple being that I so crave. What is that I you are taking yourself to be? That is the imagined separate person. You as awareness are fully here and now. You cannot get out of it. There is no one to rest and nothing to rest in because that is what you are. You must deeply question this idea of being an entity apart from presence awareness. All the difficulties are for the I. And the difficulties continue as long as the I is not deeply questioned. Once it is questioned, the I is found not to exist, and all the imagined troubles are resolved once and for all. You have created a lot of conceptual distinctions among heart, body, mind, and so on. You also have the idea that there is a problem and the need for healing. The mind is spinning, trying to work it out. But the answer is not in the mind. You cannot use the mind to get free of the problems and riddles created by thought. It is a noble attempt, but bound to fail. This is really more of a non-verbal looking into the fact that you are not the imagined, separate person. Neither are you a victim of all the imagined problems and solutions that are based on that assumption. Even searching for a solution is just another layer added on by the person. Who else is in search of freedom but the person? Better to question the person. This is the sword that severs the head of the apparent hydra. Question. The wound smiles at me knowingly, holding the key to freedom, beckoning me to fully rest in love, to be loved, to recognize and laugh, to trust, to accept, to be perfectly kind, to allow myself as I am. That is what I most want. John, this is still too much. First you told a scary story. This one is a prettier story, possibly a noble and spiritual one, but notice how, woven into it, there is a subtle assumption that you are a separate person apart from presence awareness. There is nothing you as a person can do to find freedom because the person is the very cause of the problem. Whether the person steps backwards or forwards or paints himself as a sinner or a saint, he is still there. And he remains apart from the deeper truth that he longs for. The only adequate approach is to entirely dissolve the person and awaken to what you are and always have been, which is being, presence, awareness, consciousness, or whatever else you want to call it. Until you see this deeply, you are like a dreamer lost in a dream, and no matter what you do, you are still locked in the confines of your imaginary bondage. What you really need is to wake up from the dream of imagination and conceptual thought, which has you convinced that you are something separate from what you really are. This investigation will ultimately dismantle all your false assumptions and beliefs about yourself. You will find yourself stripped of your ideas and concepts, including your ideas of yourself. Then you will stand naked, yet utterly free. You will attain nothing which you do not have right now. Only the veils will be removed, and you will notice what is present at the core of your being. It truly is here right now. Without the least struggle or effort, you are naturally aware and present. That presence awareness has no separation, bondage, limits, or problems. Just look deeply into this. Question every idea, thought, or belief that tells you your nature is anything different than this. Chapter 35. This freaking awareness, only this. Questioner, I gotta tell you, but you already know. It seems too obvious to even mention, too simple. This freaking awareness, only this. Something that Sailor Bob said really struck me. Just start with plain old awareness, this waking awareness. That is this I, this self, yet no one or no thing at all, no self or not self. All these images that I've named, sorted and evaluated are just appearances, movements of this that never moves. The ramifications are mind-boggling. Not that there aren't arisings of doubt, apparent forgetting, but to who? Oh my God! I think there is a goldmine of a book to be written, waking up from the dream of individual awakening. John, what you are seeing is good. Things are starting to take hold. The proof is in the pudding. As Nisargadatta Maharaj said somewhere, you will know when you have found the philosopher's stone when you yourself turn to gold. So in other words, it is all about your direct experience. Follow-up question. I got Bob Adams